Wait.
I almost blew my nuts off.
You robbed this dude, strip him naked, and end up shooting yourself.
Yeah. I still got the scar. The way you say stuff just makes it sound like worse than it is.
I'm just trying to paint the picture. You ready, dude?
Word.
Let's do this. All right, Bryon, we got two Bryons this show. So, before we get started, dude, we're going to send you home with an amazing loaf of bread that the girls whip up. You smell it when you walk in.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Captivating.
It's pretty rough living in this house sometimes, especially when I'm
Smells
about
like
to
it.
jump on a fast and I got to deal with people's orders. But, yeah, the girls, we started the Sour Bee as a little homeschool project, and it's turned into an actual business for them now, so it's been pretty cool. All right, bro. You have quite a story of pretty rough childhood upbringing. You got shifted around some homes quite a bit as a kid. You went in and out of the foster system. You ended up getting some trouble after your mom gave you up for adoption. You were living in a foster home. Trouble, which I want to get into, led to you being kicked out of that home. Kind of went back and forth from the East Coast for a few years. You got into some trouble. One thing led to another. You kind of found yourself in and out. You did some time in jail. Got your wife, turned your life around. Now you got a lot of really good things going for you. You actually came from a recommendation from one of our guests.
Yeah.
And Matthew Sidwell, which was an incredible episode, and he hit me up, was like, man, you got to get this guy on. He's got quite the story. And you're new to Idaho, and if anybody's listening, you are one of the largest human beings that I have run into in a long time. Like, I consider myself a pretty decent-sized guy at 6'3", 250. You absolutely dwarf me. Yeah. So you fill my little chair up. I feel like we got to get...
Yeah, I can definitely feel my cheeks pushing against the side chair.
I've never looked at my chair before and been like, holy shit, it looks like a toddler sitting. Yeah. Like a little toddler chair and you're at the, at Thanksgiving when you get stuck at the little table.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you don't sit down fast enough. And you got to sit down at the little kid table.
You are a massive human being.
Yeah, I get
that. All right, dude, let's jump into this. We got some stuff to cover because you got quite the life. So who are you and where are you from?
Well, my name's Bryon Parsons. Born and raised in Tacoma, lived a lot of my life in like Puyallup area. I'm used to love playing darts, the bar scene, drug scene, tons of cocaine, things like that. And that was kind of my identity for a long time. But, kind of long story short, ended up in the hospital back in July due to my drug use and alcohol use. My triglycerides were 5,700, which less than 100 is normal. So they were like, you should not be living right now.
Holy cow.
So they had to take my blood to a special hospital to get it spun because they couldn't spin it fast enough to separate it. And so that was like a pivotal moment, then, dealing with that hospital situation and coming close to death. That's the third time that I've almost died, and it was a pretty serious one.
For sure.
But I got back and forth to the East Coast, West Coast. I wasn't really in the foster system. It was just my mom gave me up. We went to go visit my brother in Washington, and she ended up just telling my stepdad that, hey, if you can't take care of him, then send him off, just because she was hooked on dope. I never really understood what she was on. I never asked. I just knew what happened because she was on it.
Well, what was that like growing up with a mom that was addicted? Do you know what her drug of choice was?
Well, in the beginning, I still to this day don't know what she chose over us, because that's what I say is she chose something over us. So I've never really asked her about that. But growing up as a kid, up until second grade, I had no idea what was going on. I just knew that, I didn't know who my dad was. And, I was the only brother and sister that, brother out of the whole, 2 brothers and 1 sister that didn't know their dad, and so like, I just knew that I was just trying to do anything I could to, make my mom happy, because she was all that I had, and I didn't know there was any drugs or anything until we ended up moving to the East Coast. She essentially, she didn't kidnap all of us, but she did kidnap, per se, my younger brother, because my stepdad didn't know that he was leaving. And so when she kidnapped him, and we drove all the way to Virginia, to Richmond, Virginia, and my little brother was there for like 2 weeks, something like that. And my stepdad got him out, and I'm like, oh, that must be nice. You get rescued, and we're over here.
Did you not want to be there?
Oh, no, not at all, because I've always been extremely perceptive and have high discernment, as a little kid, all the way up until now. And so, like, when we were on that mission, that driving mission, and we had to stop at hotels, my mom was having sex with her best friend's husband, because her best friend's husband was sent to Washington to come drive us back. And so then, like, I'm in the bed next to her, and it's a 2-queen situation, and she's having sex with dude, and I'm like, this is not going to go over well, and I'm at this point, I'm 6, and I'm fully aware, like, I know what's going on. I know what sex is. I know, cause I got taken advantage of myself,
At what age?
I think I was about 4 or 5 by another, female. I don't want to expose too many people's information with it, but yeah, it was a girl that was the same age as me. And, she was doing what she saw her mom do. And, I was doing what I saw my mom do, and we thought it was normal,
Yeah.
but turns out it's not normal, what I found out. And so when we get all the way over to Virginia, like, I hear all this arguing, and I'm like, shit, like, she's talking about, oh, you slept with him. And I'm like, yep, she sure did. So that we stayed there for about 2 weeks. And then we ended up getting kicked out. Her friend kicked us out, and we moved.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, for sure. And we moved.
So this dude, your mom's best friend, your mom's best friend's husband goes all the way to the West Coast to grab you guys to help drive you across country, and he's hooking up with your mom as you're driving across country, and you're going to be living with these people.
Yep.
Damn, that's grimy.
Yeah. It's trifling. Yeah. It's terrible.
Okay.
And so then we get kicked out and then move right across the street. Like, literally, shit you not, just across the street. Like, her house, our new house. And it was a drug house. And that's when I finally understood that there was many layers to this onion that I didn't really understand in the beginning. And it got to the point where my mom's, she's having sex in the bed, excuse me, with me, in the bed next to her. And then the next morning, I'm having a normal conversation with her as a 6-year-old child, talking to my mom about, hey, like, why was Tony in the bed with you? And she's like, it wasn't Tony. Mind your business. And I'm like, well, I'm in the same bed. It's kind of hard to mind my business. Like, and so it's like, had normal sexual conversations, normal, drug conversations at that age, with my mom, who was, I think she was probably 25 at the time, something like that, maybe, because I was 6. She had me when she was 19. Yeah, probably about 25, 26. And it was that was, I'm definitely jumping over a bunch of stuff, but that time in my life, it was very hard for me to grasp what was going on, and then also why. And
for sure,
I was extremely gifted as a child. I'm still the smartest person I know now, but I was extremely gifted. So while, like, we were in Virginia, I was in 2nd grade, and I had to go to a 6th grade class because that's the highest class they had in the school, because I was too advanced for the 2nd grade class. And so I got made fun of, I got bullied, and it's like, I'm fresh out of a new state. I'm getting beat by these crackheads at my house. My mom don't give a shit about me. And now I'm going to school and I'm getting made fun of because I'm smart. Oh, so it's like, so I got accused of all this stuff. And so 2nd grade was like when I started figuring out life, and, like, started blaming myself for, maybe my dad's not around because of something I did, and
you never knew your father, correct?
Yeah, no, I found out who he was 10 years after he died.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. And the way that I found out is wild.
I want to get into that. Definitely. Let's keep on the childhood, because so So you're this young, gifted kid. You're living in a crack house. How many people are living in your home?
You know what's wild is I can see them all in my head right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. There was 5 people.
5 adults in your house?
Yeah. And one of the people is the one that called me Brain because she couldn't spell. And she thought my name was Brain when it really is Bryon. So she called me Brain. She's like, "You so smart, Brain." I'm like, "Oh, wow. This is."
Was that pretty rough having all those people on drugs in a home? Did you find a lot of abuse? Is that a regular thing, or was it just here and there?
Abuse was a regular thing. You know, I was a troubled kid in a terrible environment.
For sure.
So I didn't make a lot of great decisions. But with that being said, I still had hands put on me, you know, by a lot of people in the house, because it was like the whole, it takes a village, you know, to beat your kid, you know, kind of a mentality. And that's kind of what it turned into, you know. And then I realized, like, oh, wow, you know, at nighttime, you know, you're all happy, you know, but then when it comes morning time, you're not happy. And that's when I get in trouble. So let me make sure that I'm not in the house in the morning, you know. And that was tough. Like drinking powdered milk, having no money, you know, waking myself up every morning at 7 o'clock to get my sister situated and ready and safe for the day. And then I had to walk to school because she wasn't in school yet. She was only 5, you know, and having to deal with that back and forth, you know, in school the whole time, dealing with the bullshit in school, having to think about, like, what's going on with my sister back there? Like, I got to get, you know, so it was, you know.
You had a lot on your plate as a young kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you grew up really quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it just you and your sister? Are you the only kids in the home?
Yep, at that time. But, you know, we had my older brother who lived in Olympia at the time, and then my younger brother, he actually is the one who got taken back to Tacoma.
Okay.
You know, and so that was all, you know, good there. So at the time, it was just us 2 kids living in an adult world, you know, having adult conversations, you know, like, I'm happy about it, and I'm not happy about it because I don't feel like I should have been put through that.
For sure.
But I'm also happy about it. It's like, I feel like my childhood was robbed. You know, I got it taken from me. But at the end of it, the most important thing is, like we were speaking about earlier, it's like, what can I use in this circumstance to help people? Yeah. You know, and it's like, God gives the biggest test to the people with the biggest shoulders, you know. And as you said, I'm a large human being, you know, and so I feel like there's a lot of things that God put on my shoulders because a lot of people couldn't handle it. That doesn't make it easier for me, and that doesn't justify it in my own mind, but it does give me a sense of calm when I sit back and think, like, if you could help one person throughout all of this, you know, then it's worth it. And so I'd do it again. You know, I would go through this again if I could, you know, if I could help somebody like my son, or I could help somebody, you know, through a struggle that they're going through. You know, it doesn't make it fun, but it helps. That's one of the things that helps me get past it.
What was one of the hardest points of growing up in a crack house as a kid?
Not ever wanting to be home, only come home to get a flashlight, you know, kind of a thing. And like, I just knew that I just couldn't be home because I knew that, you know, you're going to get smacked, you're going to get, you know, roughed up, or, you know, so just took my little sister and we would just always be out trekking, you know, Richmond, Virginia, just, you know, making friends everywhere. And that was part of the issue, was that I went to so many schools up until 2nd grade. I think going to that school in Virginia was like my 3rd elementary school. You know, I went to, you know, junior high was a different school. Then I went to 4 different high schools. And so my whole mindset the whole time has been, make as many friends as you can as fast as possible, because you don't know when this shit's going to end. You know, because you're going to get snatched up and need to go somewhere. And now you got to start all over. And so what that created was me to take my gifts and be like, how can I reach people fast? Okay, well, I reach people fast through jokes and through making people laugh and feel comfortable, you know, whether it be the kid in the wheelchair or the dude on the football team. That's been my way to go. And that's what I've lived by, you know, and it's, I still see that happening to this day, that's still a mindset that I have. It's like, how can I get in there and make these people like me as fast as possible? Because who knows when I'm going to be gone, you know?
It's a great skill, coping skill to develop, is to be able to get in and to find a way into groups and things like that. And I mean, I'm sure it was just a natural skill that you had to develop that you didn't even know you were doing just because of the lifestyle that you're living. I mean, that's almost like a primal, like, survival skill as a kid. I mean, just to try to find anybody that would accept you.
And I don't know how I got through it. You know, while I was going through it, I had no clue, like, what's giving me these abilities? What's giving me these, you know, feelings in my gut that tell me, hey, get your sister out of here, or hey, do this.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I came to the conclusion early on, because I was saved. I went to church early, like 5, 6 years old, right before we moved. Like I was in a church environment and got saved, because I was like, there's something out there, because I'm not smart enough to do this all myself. And so that's kind of when I started realizing, you know, that, hey, there's something out there that's helping you get through this, whether you see it or not. You know, it doesn't make it easier, and I'm gonna have a ton of questions for this dude whenever it comes time. But until then, let me use the gifts that he's given me to survive. You know, and that's all I did was survive.
How long were you in this crack house for before things changed?
Just second grade. So
okay,
because did the whole school year, and summer came, and I excuse me. I still remember this day like, you know, like it was yesterday, because I can still see it in my eyes. I was sitting in the back of a maroon, like 90-something Mustang. And my mom's like, hey, you guys are going to go visit your little brother for a couple weeks. And we were like, cool. Okay, this is going to be cool. So I still remember sitting in the back of that Mustang, my mom standing in the middle of the street, and she's waving bye to me. And I'm like, bye, you know, I'll see you soon. Because even throughout all of this pain and suffering and things that I've seen that I shouldn't have seen, I still wanted to be with my mom.
Absolutely.
You know, like it was just something in me. And, you know, when we get there, back to Washington, my stepdad was like, you guys have a bunch of clothes. Like, you have too much clothes for how long you're staying. So what's going on? And I was like, bro, I have no idea. Like, I'm literally 7. You know, I have no idea.
So your stepdad had no idea?
No. So he calls her and says, you know, like, hey, what's going on? And that's when, you know, basically in a nutshell, because I didn't hear the conversation, was you can either take care of him or let somebody else take care of him, but I can't.
Your mom just gave you up?
Yeah. I was actually 8. Yeah. So actually, I think I was there for a lot longer than a year. I think it might have been a year and a half, because I was like 6. So yeah.
Your sister came with you or no?
She came with me, but she ended up going right to her dad's house to visit her family.
Okay.
You know, and so, you know, so it was a surprise to my little brother. He was excited to see us and whatnot. But the whole time I knew who this lady was, because, you know, my mom had kids with 4 married men. All men that she had kids with were married. And so all guys she had kids with were married. And so that was kind of, I knew about, you know, this lady, and her name was Connie, and we weren't allowed to say her name. So just for a little backstory, my stepdad got married in 1977.
Okay.
My little brother was born in 1987. So he had been married for a decade. Now, my stepmother couldn't have kids. And so she looked, in my opinion, she looked past the infidelity and accepted my little brother as her son.
Okay.
Because she couldn't have kids.
Okay.
And so he was always the favorite. He's always the one getting rescued, saved, you know, all the way into his drug years, you know, and, you know, mom taking him somewhere at 3 a.m. just because he needs to go do something. It's like, Mom, he's doing drugs. She's like, no, he's not, you know, like that's how it was, you know. Meanwhile, I'm still getting beat, you know, in this house. But the next September which was my birthday, my mom sent me a card. It had the 7 dwarves on it, and it said, I'm a little short this year, but I still love you, in short. And then that was the last time I heard from my mom, you know, until I was 15. So like 8, 9 years after that. So I had to go.
No contact, nothing?
Nope.
Did you ever try to reach out? I mean, how do you, I guess?
Yeah, there was, you know, this was back in 94,
mm-hmm.
you know, so it's like CDs haven't even came out yet.
Yeah. It's not like you're searching on Facebook or being able to just call her.
There was nothing I could do, you know, other than just grin and bear it.
So now you're now living with your stepdad that is married to his wife, and you just get dropped off into the middle of all this. So I'm sure your stepdad's not very happy.
Yeah.
Or your stepmom, in a way, to now all of a sudden one day they just absorbed you and your sister for a short time.
Yeah. So
and your sister ends up leaving. You stay there.
My sister, we went separate ways when we first got to Washington. And then a couple weeks later, when my stepdad understood the gravity of the situation, brought Nikki, you know, my sister, over. And then we both kind of moved in.
Okay.
You know.
How was that?
Well, it felt odd. It felt good because, it's like this is all I know. This is my brother and sister, still hadn't talked to my older brother very much, like barely ever talked to him. And so I was like, I know that this circumstance isn't the best, but it's 100 times better than what we came through or came from. So let's just embrace it. Let's just do the same thing. But having all of those things, baggage that I brought with me just created nothing but strife in the home, because although my stepmom loved, my younger brother, me and my sister emulated something, or represented something that she just couldn't stand. And so, we found journals, of her talking about how she hates us as kids and, wish we never came and all that stuff. Meanwhile, in the beginning, we were forced to call her mom. And if we didn't want to call her mom, we called her Connie. Then we had to go to bed early, sit at the table. So it was almost like a mental abuse situation where, like, we were forced. And so, what does a kid in my situation do? Transform. You just mold yourself into whatever you need to survive, because that's what I do, is I survive, So it was difficult because I brought those same baggage with me, like I said, and so I was in trouble in school all the time. I was advanced in school, always in trouble, just because this is what I'm used to.
You just didn't have any structure or what? So
Yeah.
your stepdad and stepmom's house, are they clean, normal living family, or are they in the drugs and everything too?
Nope, clean. Yeah.
So you went from one extreme environment, living in a
Yeah.
crack house, then your mom just ships you off to your stepdad's house, which is the polar opposite. This is, I guess, like a solid family. I'm using air quotes on that, compared to the life you were previously living. So that was a pretty easy, like, transformation from one house to the other, or
it was easy in the fact that I didn't have to put up as much of a guard.
Okay.
I was still getting emotionally abused, physically abused there, because my stepmom never liked us, and she was hitting me with odd things, like hold your hands out and whooping you with electrical cord, the whole go grab a switch off the tree thing, and you grab a thin one because you think it's not going to hurt, and you get your ass whipped. So it was still a struggle, but it was better than what I knew.
So now you're living in a home with a woman that can't stand you because she knows the history of you, her husband, your mother,
who's still cheating on her, by the way.
Your stepdad was still cheating on your stepmom.
Yeah, with other women. Yeah.
Okay.
One of them ended up committing suicide, because she found out that she was getting cheated on with another. So it was a whole big thing. And my
love triangle.
Yeah, my stepdad was a firefighter, and he was absolutely loved by the entire community, everybody. He was on the news multiple times in Tacoma, and just like, he was absolutely loved. And that perception, when I set up his funeral, that's what made things so hard for me, was knowing how it truly was at home and knowing how he really was, but then everybody else saying what they thought of him, and I got to sit here and smile and cry through this funeral, that I set up just to what, again, survival, pretending, just a facade that you put
That's
up.
pretty rough. So the true man, and everybody's glorifying him and putting him on this pedestal, and you're sitting there having to just swallow it.
Yeah.
Because all the years that you had to grow up dealing with that shit.
And that was after I had to bury my stepmom,
Damn.
Yeah. Oh, it's buckle in, we got a couple things that might, blow your socks off here.
So childhood's going on with them. You're getting all settled in. You're finding the groove. Your stepmom hates you being in the house, you and your little sister. You're learning to cope with it. Where does life go from there?
So at that point, I was able to just be a kid, throughout all of the mental and physical abuse. I was able to just be a kid, hide and go seek, playing with kids, meeting neighbor kids, getting in fights between the portables. Like, I was able to, do normal stuff. I took all of the knowledge with me from things that I saw, so I was able to manipulate, things, because a lot of people were sheltered, where I was at.
You got some street cred by this point.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Exactly right.
For sure.
So I use it to the best of my ability. I still have always been a jokester, and, I'm going to do that until I die, for sure. But, I had a decent upbringing, aside from the abuse, like a pretty normal from 8 to 14.
Okay.
It was pretty normal.
So at 14, what turned not normal?
Well, I started getting involved with some seniors, and I was a sophomore, got involved with some older guys just because like I always wanted to be accepted. And so they were making counterfeit money at the time. You know, back, we're talking about 1998, making counterfeit money, just dollar bills, you know, printing, you know, copy machine, gluing two sides of the bill together, throwing them in the dryer with some pants and stuff, rough up the dollars, and then take them to the student store and spend the money, you know, at the store. So like, I was like, this is what's up. I can get the Skittles, the Coke, everything that I want, Coca-Cola at that time, you know, I can get everything I want with this fake money. Like, I was like, this fits right into my lifestyle that I'm used to, you know, that East Coast living, you know, that I had to survive in.
You started making counterfeit money at 14?
Yeah, they were only dollar bills, but
Yeah,
you know, they add up. You know?
Yeah, for sure they do. How long did that go on for?
I want to say 3 months.
Okay.
I was in high school because at that point, so I had just started talking to my brother, my older brother, because he actually moved from Olympia to the East Coast. He lived in Maryland and DC with my mom. And so he had just came back. And so my step-parents knew that. They knew about our relationship, and they knew that I knew where, you know, my mom was. And so when this whole fake money thing happened, I mean, the Secret Service came to the school, or whoever, the government people, FBI or somebody, came to the school because the guys that I was doing it with were doing it everywhere, like locally. It wasn't just a student store for me. It was like gas stations and all this stuff. And it was a pretty, in the town that we were in, that was a pretty big deal. So they had some big dogs come and handle it. And so I got expelled from.
So they ratted you out?
Oh, I mean, I was just like, I didn't care. It's like, yeah, this is what I was doing. It's like, so what? What are you going to do? You going to hit me? Like, wow. You know, I've never been hit before. You know, like it's just no fear of consequences. It's like, you know, fuck it. This is my life. Like, so there's nothing you can do to me that I haven't seen before. So have at it. So they ended up kicking me out. And I ended up taking a plane back to Maryland, lived in Silver Spring.
Your step-parents kicked you out.
Yep.
So you get expelled from school for counterfeit money.
Mm-hmm.
Your step-parents, mom and dad, both kick you out of their house, and you have to go back to live with your mom?
Yep.
Is she still living in a crack house?
Not a crack house, but still had a terrible pick in men.
Okay.
You know, the guy that when I moved in there, like my mom had me when she was 19. I looked a lot older and she looked a lot younger than our actual ages were. So when I got there, like my brother's white, you know, his dad's white, my mom's white, he was white. So the guy was like, okay, my mom's boyfriend, okay, I can kind of believe that that's your kid. But then I show up and it's like, oh, this is my son too. You know, they don't look alike, but so he thought me and my mom were having sex. Like her boyfriend thought that we were, like, it was a plot that she's just flying people in, calling them their kids and having sex with them. Like so it was like, immediately I was like, this is terrible. Like,
that's an awkward situation.
Yeah. Haven't seen my mom in a decade. And now I'm getting accused of having sex with my mom. I got all this history of sexual stuff that I've had to deal with. And now I'm getting accused of some shit that I had nothing to do with. Like, and so that made it very difficult. But what made it a little bit easier is that the dude was black. I never knew the black side of my family. So I was able to like start hanging out with family, you know, that kind of shared my same melanin, and it felt good. So it was like, you start putting things aside when you're like, okay, this is the bad, but this is the good. Which one's better or which one's worse? And that's kind of just what made it easier to deal with. And he got physical with her. But before that, she told me, she said, if you go to school and you get decent grades, you can smoke and drink. You can do whatever you want. And I was like, I'm 15.
That's your mom?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm 15. She's like, do you want to smoke? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to smoke.
Cigarettes or weed?
Weed.
Okay.
Yeah, weed. So the first time I ever smoked weed or ever drank was with my mom at 15. Then all the past. So the stuff just outside looking in now, I'm like, that was terrible. Like, you know, I was in advanced class. I was done with math for high school in 7th grade. So I was already done with all my math, took trigonometry, calculus, pre-cal, you know, everything. I took all that stuff in junior high, you know. So when I got to DC or I was actually at Montgomery Blair High School in Silver Spring, Maryland. And I was in this stuff called Magnet. And I was like, I have no clue what this is, but apparently I tested. So I'm 15, I get in class and there's a bunch of 10-year-old Asian kids in there. And I'm like, I don't think I'm in the right spot. You know, turns out they're all geniuses. And then, you know, so then we fall right back into that same thing of, I want to kick it with these fools on the street. You know what I'm saying? So I'm getting made fun of for being in these magnet classes. I got 4 of them, you know? So I just kept on.
So you're trying to keep a street cred image.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you're just genius. Now you're in this Asian.
I mean, that's okay. I'll take it. But yeah.
Okay, you're accelerated in school.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're in a single class with a bunch of Asian kids, you're borderline genius. We'll just.
Yeah, I've gotten dumber for sure. But
we all have. And so now you're probably in this weird position where you want to roll with your friends on the streets, but they're making fun of you for rolling with the Asian kids in these excelled classes. So did you drop out or did you keep going to them? I mean,
I flunked out on purpose.
Of course.
I just said I'm not doing it.
All for the image and just to have friends?
Yeah, made some friends. You know, I wanted to be cool with the skaters and I wanted to be cool with the gangsters. Like, just because I liked everybody. Everybody had something to offer me, you know, and so I was that guy that would be kicking it with the, the special ed kids and making friends there and making friends everywhere. And so it's like, but the criminal side kind of won out because, those are the people that it's like, I'm out on the corner in down, DC drinking on the corner with these guys, and it's like, now I can see where this gang stuff really, really took root because it's like, I have no father. The father I do know was abusive and mentally, he was cheating on his wife and all that stuff. So I don't really have any good examples, and these dudes, if I say, hey, I'm having a problem, they're right there. They jump on it. They protect me and help me, and that was kind of what made that side of my life win out, where it's like, you know what? Screw all y'all skaters and nerds and special ed kids. I'm kicking it with the gangsters that got my back, when we're out here in the streets doing stuff, You
were the prime example for a kid that could either excelled and valedictorian, or you got pulled into the gang life because you didn't have that father figure in your life, and that's where you got sucked into that.
It was just more appealing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so I ended up going to that high school. We ended up moving, because she still was making a lot of bad financial decisions. So we would only be able to live in a certain area for a year. And then we moved. So then I went to, I went to 2 high schools sophomore year. And then I went to another high school in my junior year. That's where I started rapping and doing all this stuff, and truly feeling good about where I was at. And I enjoyed it. I still actually talk to some of them people to this day on Instagram from my old high school day there. And so things were still the same way, drinking, smoking, doing whatever. At this point, I was actually in this relationship behind my mom's back with her best friend, in these apartments. Like her friend was like 25 or 26, something like that, and her friend like started coming on to me. And so I was like, oh, this is what I know. This is what I'm used to doing, so that kind of blossomed into a relationship, with her friend behind her back.
And how old are you?
16 at this point.
So you're 16 years old and your mom's best friend is coming on to you. So now you're hooking up with your mom's best friend behind her back.
Yeah.
Damn, that's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How long that going for?
Well, it was only a year because did the whole year thing. We had to move again. So,
dude, so you're almost every single year, you're starting a whole new chapter almost every year of your life.
Yep.
Damn, dude. That is wild.
Yeah, we moved. So the final, I went to Dunbar High School in Northwest DC. That was the first time that I ever experienced, this is 2001, going through metal detectors to get into school because it was pretty dangerous, but I like dangerous, so like that's who I was kicking it with the dangerous kids. And at this point, she was in another relationship with another guy. This dude actually ended up being the one and only time she's ever been married. She married this dude. He was kicking her ass. He was a gang member, very, very bad example of a man. And so I don't think my mom wanted me to be around that. Excuse me. So renting out rooms was a big thing in DC where I lived. I lived 312 Seton Block, Northeast DC. And you could rent out a room. So you have a town, the whole house, the whole block is townhouses.
Yeah.
And so, and they're all connected. And most of the time somebody owned all of them, and then he would rent out rooms. And so there was like 5 rooms in this place that I was at. And so my mom essentially rented me a room. She was living with dude. I had my own space. So I'm 17 years old, gone through all this stuff. Now I'm like, I've been through enough stuff to make me an adult. And now I am. Now I'm living on my own, you know, like boiling hot dogs. That's what I was eating. You know, I was out there fending for myself, helping, you know, people on the block like run dope, you know, like I sat out on the porch, you know, on the stoop, just waiting for people to, you know, because that wasn't somewhere that I wanted to just go out and start making friends. And so I got approached and then I started helping this guy named BJ. I think he's dead anyway, so it don't matter, but helping him sell butter, which is yellow crack. And so I was serving people in my room, in my house, you know, serving them crack. And I was just out, you know, and then, yeah, one time I went out there to go see him and he fell asleep behind the wheel and the cops, you know, locked him up, you know, because he had a bunch of drugs on him. So, like, I was fending for myself, you know, just selling crack. Cause like, I've never done this before in my life, but now I'm doing it to get by, you know, and I'm liking it. It's like,
Are you using crack or
no,
just selling it?
No, just selling it. Yeah.
Okay.
I never messed with it at all. There was the people that I was hanging with, they said, look, doing all this, you know, slanging shit is fine, but if you start messing with it, then we can't mess with you. Okay. And so that kind of put that barrier up. Like, if you smoke PCP with the old folks up the hill, you're going to be put at a certain point, you know? And so it's like, so you just never mess with it, you know, just weed and alcohol. That was it.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So you get pulled in selling, you said yellow?
Yeah. Butters. This is what we call it. Cause it looked like a little stick of butter and then you'd slice it off, but it was just crack.
No shit. And these are the dudes that you're just rolling with now.
Yeah.
This is your mom's new husband? Or is this
they weren't even involved because I was living in the house by myself.
Oh,
she rented that room out.
So
and
you're
she
not
lived
even
down
in
the
same
street.
house.
No.
So your mom rents you. Okay, I'm tracking now. You're all over the. What I mean, not in a storytelling way, but just your life.
Yeah.
You're in all these different homes. So you're okay. So I'm tracking now. So your mom just rents you a separate room in a whole different house. Mm-hmm. Now everybody who's living in that house with you.
Well, 2 crackheads for sure, because I was selling them crack. But the other 3 people, you know, they just normal people. And every time they leave, you know, that's when I learned the credit card trick to open up a door. You know, and so I'd break in their rooms when they left. You know, I wouldn't go to school. I'd just break in their rooms and then lift up mattresses and see, you know, find change, you know, and then I'd go to the little teriyaki spot and get me a little burger with some French fries and some fry sauce, you know, walk through the alley. So it was like a whole thing, you know, it was just a way of life for me. And I just fit right into it.
Damn. How long did that go on for?
In DC specifically, that lasted until I think January. So I was only in school for like 3 months. And then I was like, I had my back against the wall and I just knew that I was in a bad spot. And I was like, I need to go home. Like, I need to go home.
Back to the West Coast home?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I was always in contact with my stepdad and stepmom and like.
Firefighter?
Yep. Okay. I was like, I'm changed. You know, no, I'm not. I'm changed. Like, let me come back, you know, cause I miss that way of life because I just knew where I was going. After watching few people get shot and killed, I was like, that's not for me. Like, I don't want that at all. And so I was like, I had to go. So I took a train, Amtrak back all the way from.
How was DC.
that?
How long did that take?
3 days.
Riding a train?
Yeah. Yep. In a single seat, you know, and it's like, you've survived everywhere except for sitting your butt on a train and thinking about stuff. And so that was kind of a tough deal. But I knew that in the end, like, where I was going and why I was going was just because I was at my wit's end with where I was at, you know. And then I ended up going back to the high school that I got expelled from. When I went back, you never guess what I started making again, except on my own. Fake money. Yeah.
So you went right back in the counterfeit money? Were you making dollars or did it get bigger?
Hundreds. And what I was doing is I was making 10, 20,000 because I was good at it, like really good at it. And I was making $10,000-$20,000, and then I'd go down south to like Olympia and find some dope boys that were doing whatever they were doing. They knew what it was, and so they would use it and mix it in so that when they're picking up something that they could put in, you know, like $5,000 in counterfeit, and then, you know, $10,000 and whatever. Now they could pick up a bird or whatever they're trying to grab at the time. So
you're making counterfeit money for drug dealers that are cutting their stacks with your counterfeit money. Were you?
Yeah, when you say it like that, it's yeah. Yeah, that's precisely what it is.
Were you using the counterfeit money?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Really? Yeah, like I would take like a group of like 4 or 5 of my homeboys, and we're like, okay, we're gonna go to Tacoma Mall, and all we're gonna do is take these 100s or take these 50s and walk around and ask people for change. Like go to kiosks, like, hey, you got change for whatever? And then, give them a fake 100. Now we get 2 50s, and now we got real money. Now we've laundered it appropriately. Now we can, and that's kind of just that's what it turned into. Like I got really good at making the money.
How were you making it? You're not just printing it. I mean, there's a feel and.
Yeah. So you have to get a certain type of paper, because I did research and money's not made with paper.
Yeah.
It's made with fabric, and that's why they mark it with those fabric pens. But I found a way around it because the only thing that those pens mark black on is paper, So if it's black, so then obviously you need to put some sort of barrier around that bill so that when they mark it, it comes off as that yellow or orange or whatever color. Yeah. And so I used my brain and I was like, you know what? I know when people are doing stencils, like pencil drawings, to get it to stop smearing, they spray this acrylic on it, and that puts a cover, a barrier over that drawing so that it won't smear. And I'm like, I wonder if I put that barrier on this money after I wash it, after you put it in the dryer and with jeans and maybe a brick and you get it all nice and worked in, then spray it, and then it didn't work all the time, but it always passed the pen test, which was at that time was the biggest test was the pen test. They didn't have the little neon little things and at that point.
Not fake, the hidden faces and all that shit. This is just old school bills. Yeah. No shit. Yeah. Did you ever have anybody check it and it come up counterfeit in front of you? Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah, no, it worked. It worked really well. It was just, you would have to be you'd really have to know money to know that it at that time, the $100 bills, the big Ben Franklin, and stuff. Yeah, it was even to the point where the copy machine lit up the bills, so like the strip was faint, and so then when people looked at it, they could still see a strip, even though there was no strip in there. It just was like the image of a strip, because it's a copied bill. I'd put like $1,000 and then print them all off, and I turn the paper over a certain way, flip all the bills over, and put it in the right way so that as it printed off, it would print the bills on one piece of paper, both sides. So it wasn't thick like my, dollar bills at the ASB store, type days.
Oh shit. How long did that last?
I didn't ever get caught with that.
Really?
Yeah, I never got caught with that. That was probably a 6-month deal. Cause it was like me and a few homeboys. And at that time, when I moved back, I used my skills that I've acquired, and I was able to take advantage of the same house that was abusing me. So I moved in my homeboys, because I knew that my stepdad wasn't around because he was out off with whomever, and like as a family, me and the brother and sister, we were going to hang out with him and his, side piece, so it was like I had all the cards in my favor so I could take advantage. So I just moved my homies in the house, and, we started a little thing called TNT, Top Notch Thugs, back when and just started, I was like, I want this gang life again, and it ended up just being us with guns robbing people, that's all it turned out to be.
You started robbing people?
Yeah. Yep.
Do you remember the first person you robbed?
Yeah, I do.
Like?
This is a wild story too, because this is when I got shot. So
you got shot?
Yeah, but hold on a second. It's not incredible when you hear how everything happened. It's not incredible yet. So me and my homeboy robbed this dude for a pound of weed. So we were like, hey, we want a pound of weed. And my buddy moved out of his apartment, but he still had the keys. So it was like the perfect vacant spot. So I had a Browning 45. I am not good with guns at that point. I have no clue. I was good with these. I never really had to deal with guns before. But we set it up. I was hiding behind the water heater. And so then when he walks out, he's like, when I go upstairs, I'm gonna like bang on the floor, and that's when you come out. And so I racked this 45, and I walk out there with a bandana on, and I put it in dude's face, and I have my finger on the trigger, and I build guns now, and so I realize how quickly things could have went terrible. Mm-hmm. And so quickly found out that he was very submissive, and so took the pound of weed from him. I made him strip naked, butt naked, and I grabbed his clothes because I was like, last thing I want you to do is run out, and tell somebody you ain't gonna run out butt naked.
Yeah.
So took all of his clothes. I went to go put the gun back in my pocket, and I shot myself in the ass. Yeah, and I still got the scar. I almost blew my nuts off.
Wait. You robbed this dude, strip him naked, and end up shooting yourself.
Yeah. The way you say stuff just makes it sound like worse than it is.
I'm just trying to paint the picture.
Yeah, it's painted.
I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah. No, it's...
And this is your first time robbing somebody.
Like actual, like...
Gunpoint.
Armed robbery. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Did you shoot yourself in front of the dude you just robbed? Did he know? Like, I mean...
Yeah, but he's like, you shot yourself. You're going to shoot me next, so I'm just going to shut up. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm not even afraid to shoot myself.
You almost shot your nuts off?
Yeah, because
where did it go in?
It went in my back left cheek, and it came out like it went in between my femur and my femoral artery.
I was going to say, if it came out inside, like...
Yeah, so it went between, the bone that if I would have hit it, I would have lost my leg.
For sure.
If I would have hit the artery, I would have bled to death. And so like I was in the hospital with that.
So did you get caught robbing this dude?
No.
He didn't turn you guys in?
He's butt naked selling weed. You know what I mean? Like he's not gonna. What is he gonna do? Tell somebody?
So what do you tell the cops?
So I'm smart. So instead of going to the hospital in the city that I did this robbery in, I drive 40 minutes south to Tacoma and go to TG because a gunshot victim there. That's normal. And so I went to a different hospital, bleeding all through my pants and everything.
You drove 40 minutes with a gunshot through your leg?
Yeah, to a different hospital. Because if gunshots in Puyallup and then, there's a big black dude in the hospital with a gunshot, like I was like, you're not catching me like that. I went to Tacoma and got off, then my wife, which was my girlfriend at the time, she showed up at the hospital and, that was kind of how that went.
Did you rob anybody after that? Or was that a one and done?
Hell no. Yeah, I didn't do that. I was like, this is stupid. Like, I'm not doing this again. But the craziest thing is after me and my wife got married, we lived with her mom for like 3 years. And one of my elementary school buddies was doing something, Amway or some sort of life insurance deal or whatever. Yeah. And he was like, hey, can I come to your house and just practice and give you a spiel, And I was like, word, yeah, that's fine. Like, let's hear it. He's like, I'm coming with my manager. So you can maybe guess how this is going. His manager was the dude that I robbed.
No.
Yeah. So he showed up. Now I had a mask on, so he didn't know who I was, but I knew who he was. And I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Like, really? Like this guy's here? And we almost get in a fist fight because he was trying to sell me insurance. And I was like, the whole premise of you being here was like, I was just here to listen to my homie, and now you're trying to tell me that I'm a deadbeat dad, because I don't want to get life insurance. So I was like, I'll kick you right off these stairs, like if you don't get out of my house. And so then he left, and then I called my buddy that I robbed the dude with, and I was like, bro, you'll never guess who just showed up to my house. Homeboy,
what
we robbed.
Are the chances of that happening?
I told you. Remember I was telling you earlier? Oh, it's never happened until that's what my life is. It's a bunch of stuff like this.
Bro, what is the chances of that? How many years difference between when you robbed him until he shows back up with your boy?
2.5 years.
Oh, so it's fresh.
3 years, yeah.
And he didn't recognize you?
Mm-mm. I mean, I was wearing a bandana, but it's like I was 6'7" back then too. So it's like, I don't know. Like it had to be God or something, like I don't know what it was, but it happened.
Holy shit. That's insane.
Yeah. Par for the course.
Right?
Yeah.
Damn, dude. Okay, so you're what? How old at this age? I mean, you're robbing people, what, 17, 18? How old were you when you did that?
Yeah, 19. 19
okay,
when
so
I was
you're
in
19.
robbing.
So where does life go from here? Now you realize the hardcore bang in life isn't probably your thing because after you shot yourself, you're done making counterfeit money.
Mm-hmm.
Where does life lead to you now?
So when I moved back to Washington State from DC, I ended up I'm a numbers guy, as you know. Math is my thing, and so I remembered my wife's phone number, all of her friends' phone numbers, and so I was like, when I get back, I need to land into something, some kind of trouble. And so I called her. She was the only one that answered, and then we ended up getting together. And she got pregnant in the same month we got together. Her mom let me live with them and sleep in the same bed as her. And I don't know if she thought we were like praying or something or what, but she got pregnant, essentially. And we were together for about a year. And
yeah, you guys having Bible study up there or what? Bro, moms, dude. Moms are the problem. I try, they're like, they're just teenagers. No, the fuck they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good Christian kid. Yeah, so was I.
Yeah.
It's
Amen, or whatever.
It's always the moms, man, that just they're fine. They're just hanging out watching a movie. Yeah.
Yeah, we were sure waterbed. But anyways,
yeah.
So we were together for a year. And then my life it kept going down. I wasn't ready for no relationship. I started that's when I got into cocaine, was when I was 19.
How'd you get introduced to cocaine?
One of my buddies that I met that was from Germany, there was a group of us. There was like 6 of us. They were always together, and like anything we would do it as a mob together, just 6 friends. And one of them was from Germany, and he had this thing for cocaine. I was like, dude, I've done weed, I've smoked PCP at this point, I've drank a lot, but what does cocaine do? Mm-hmm. And so then I tried it, and I was like, this makes me smarter. Like, I'm already smart. Like, now I'm like super smart. And so that spiraled into like a huge addiction, that didn't even stop until July of last year.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Hell yeah.
Who are the crews that you roll with? Because I feel you have the ability to be able to roll with the black guys.
Transformers.
Yeah, you come off as a transformer type of dude. Like, you could hang with any group and anybody. Like, who are you kicking it with? Is it just anybody and everybody? Or
no,
what?
it was the people that made me feel safe. Just like the people on the corner when I was in DC that I was hanging with. People like that, and it was a mixed bag. There was black dudes, white dudes, Mexican dudes. It was just, we were all kind of in the same boat. Just having, at that point, race and color and shit, that didn't even matter at that point. It was just like, we've all been through bullshit. Yeah. We ain't going to talk about it. We just know that we've been struggling. And so now we're just going to kick in. That's what we did for 4 years. Did that.
Really?
Yeah. That's how long until I was 22 is when that kind of ended. So yeah, like 3 years, but
Coke's expensive. How are you affording this?
That's one of the things my mind is blocked, is the memory on how that happened. Like, I didn't have like good jobs, I was doing like landscaping shit here and there, but like, I honestly can't remember how I was doing so much cocaine all the time. I mean, I had me having a gift of gab and being able to talk to people in all circumstances. I was able to get, in people's good graces and then finesse them out of stuff. And so it was just a skill that I acquired. Like, I have no clue how I got it, but it got to a point where I was, buying an elbow, which is like 9 ounces, like blocks.
Chunk.
Yeah. And that just, it's like, oh, I'm just going to sell it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then now your nose is gone, Did
you try selling Coke at all?
Yeah.
Is that what you were doing?
Yeah.
Were you making good money doing that?
I sniffed all the profit. That's for sure.
Did you?
Yeah.
So you were hooked.
Oh yeah.
How quick did you get hooked on Coke?
Once I started, I didn't stop for 20 years.
No shit.
Yeah. Like I said, July of last year is when I had to stop because I was in the hospital.
No shit.
Yeah.
Damn, it got its hooks in you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'm still an addict, I still have the same, but I think of everything different now. I do the things that I don't want to do because I know it's going to benefit me. I may not like it, but, stop drinking, stop
for sure
doing cocaine, stop smoking weed, just stopped everything. And luckily I was in the hospital kind of going through all of that. So like the withdrawals that I should have had, like I was in the hospital hooked up to IVs and pain meds the whole time. So like I really didn't.
So you never experienced the horrible withdrawals.
No, not like I probably should have. Like there's sometimes like I was at a point where what I was drinking, I was probably doing a gram or 2 of cocaine a day at least. And then when I drink, I'm drinking a 5th. and my wife can vouch for this. A 100 proof, fifth of bourbon, just me, ice in the bottle, like, and I could kill it 2-3 hours, and she wouldn't even know that I was drunk. Like she wouldn't even know. And this is like we're going on 17, 18 years of marriage, you know, and being able to hide stuff to the point where she had no idea.
I mean, you're a big dude, so you probably can just takes a lot for you to get you anywhere to a state where you're noticeable, huh?
Yeah, I knew I was like, okay, bro, you can drink a fifth, you can drink a half of a half gallon, no problem, wake up fine. Okay, I have a problem. There's something like, and so I was actually told my wife, I was like, you know, that Sunday or a Sunday, I was like, I'm going to take a little break from drinking. 2 days into that break, I start getting stomach pains. And I was like, these are not normal stomach pains. But my wife has known me to be per se, a hypochondriac just because I did so much cocaine. I went to the emergency room 14 times and they had to pump me with Ativan because I was just so high out of my mind that like I thought I was dying, you know, to the point of hyperventilating myself. And so I had,
you got a little bit of, she thinks a boy who cried wolf.
Yeah. She's like, okay, yeah, go ahead. And I was like, I'll drive myself. It's fine. Whatever. You know, I'm used to it. But I was like, but something's messed up in my stomach. Like it's not just like a McDonald's cheeseburger messed up. It's like something in there is like writing in cursive in my stomach. And I was like, this is not good. So I went to the urgent care right around the corner from where we lived, and they were like, "Yeah, we got to take your blood to another hospital because we can't separate it. Like we can't spin it fast enough, so we got to take it to a hospital because my triglycerides were 5,700, and 100 is normal, 100 and less. And so they were like, it's like trying to separate motor oil, you know, is what it was." They're like, we have no clue how you're even alive right now. And so they did a little CAT scan of my pelvis area and stomach. And they were like, you have acute pancreatitis and we're getting ready to send you to the hospital. And I was like, hold on a second. I'm a hypochondriac. This is just, where's the Ativan? Just give me the Ativan. It's going to go away. And they were like, nope. Yep. You need to go. You need to get admitted to the hospital. And so I literally got admitted and was in the ICU for 2 weeks.
Damn.
Kidney failure and
So what they're doing at this point, they're like cycling all your blood out and like trying to filter it or what? I mean, what?
No, there was no cycling, nothing. They'd have to take all my blood out, you know, but there were, you know, so the ICU was where I had to be, you know, and that like I had to get a catheter put in. And so like this was like the most demasculating, embarrassing shit that I've ever been through. Cause I'm like, number one, no dude's ever going to touch me ever, let alone wipe my ass, you know, but in the hospital and all these drugs, I had to have a dude put a catheter in, and then I had to have a dude clean me up because I blew my drawers off, and, you know, and I couldn't move. And so I had to roll over, and it's like the most embarrassing shit ever.
Yeah, it's degrading.
You know, and then it's like this, I got cameras on me because I can't get up, and if they see me move, then they're going to come and stop me, you know, because I really was very close to dying, and it just didn't really click, I guess, with me. You know, it's like I knew where I was at and what was going on, but I was like, I'll get through this. I've been through worse, you know?
Damn. Okay, so where were we?
Yeah, and that was the third time I almost died. There was a second time that I didn't even get to yet. So
what's the second time?
I fell down a waterfall.
How high was the waterfall?
It's like 70-something feet.
You fell off a 70-foot waterfall?
Okay, let me preface it with this. So 70 feet tall. And then there's like about 15, 20 feet down, there was like a little big, huge collection pool that the water went into and then went back over, you know? And so the whole time my wife is just bitching. She's like, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to act like I'm falling to shut your ass up. Well, I acted like I was falling and I fell. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, had to get rescued by East Pierce. Shout out to East Pierce Fire and Rescue. Thank you so much for saving my black ass. But yeah, just keep the camera on me. He's laughing too much, right?
Bro, the whole time you're down there, you're like, fuck, she was right.
Yeah, and what's wild is like I fell down. I'm wearing brand new Danners. I'm not wearing any swimming clothes whatsoever. And so then
I don't know, black people at waterfalls swimming and shit.
I wasn't that kind of guy. Like, I was black, but I love water. I love it.
Okay.
So I didn't fit the mold. I haven't taken a bath since, but now I have a reason for that. But yeah, I fell down head first. Like, this whole thing is
Okay, paint this picture.
it's probably 6 feet, wide. The diameter is 6 feet wide of this hole. I'm fall from 20 feet up head first. It's all rocks. Everything is rocks. And right before I fell, I was like, how deep is it in there? Like, I really want to know. Well, I still didn't find out because I didn't hit the bottom. Like, I fell in and I was at least 10, 12 feet down. And I had vertigo, like, I didn't know which way was up. I heard my wife screaming, like, through the water. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Holy Ghost of her lungs. And so then I finally look up. I see the light, literally. And then and I'm stroking. I'm like, whew, like, I'm pumping so hard, like, to get. And I had one last pump before it was like time to drown, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I got out. And then as soon as I get out, I dislocated my knee. My wife started doing the whole laugh thing. She started laughing. I was like, I'm down here almost dead to death, and you are laughing at me, And then my son was dying laughing too. I'm like, yeah, y'all got problems. Definitely got problems, But
you had to get rescued out of there.
Yeah, East Pierce Fire and Rescue. They came. They're like, oh, we know exactly where you're at. People fall down all the time. I'm like, cool, nice. Can't wait for the catheter. Yeah, it's just embarrassing. And so they came down, put a ladder, strapped, pulled me up, and I got out of there.
They already have it all set up.
Yep. The ladder was behind a tree. I was like, oh, if I would have known, I would have fucking grabbed it. So yeah, it was. So that was the second time. Now we can go back. Fast forward.
Yeah. So what's the first or third time? You said you've almost died 3 times.
The first time was shooting myself.
Okay.
Second time was the waterfall. Third time is the whole pancreas.
Holy
failure.
shit, bro.
Yeah.
That's comedy, isn't it? What'd your wife have to say about that?
I mean, she was like, I told you, and it's like, yeah, you're right, whatever.
Did you ever tell her you were just messing around and it became?
Yeah, I told her, at this point in my life, I was like, transparency is like, whatever, what's the worst thing that happen? It's like, and it's my wife, so I'm just going to tell her, and she saw me. So it's like, what I'm going to say, I'm clumsy? No, I knew what I was doing, but I fell.
You were just playing too hard is what you were doing.
Yeah, I was like, you know what I'm going to do? Yeah. Yep.
Damn, bro. How long you been with your wife? You said 17 years?
19 years.
Good for you guys,
Yeah.
man.
Yep.
So she's been with you through a lot of shit.
Everything. Yep.
Good for her.
Yep.
Good
Through
for both
jail,
you guys.
in a jail, license getting revoked, and yeah, I mean.
How'd you go to jail?
The first time I was 12, but the most time that I'm talking about, it was 2009.
Hold on, I want to hear how you went to jail at 12.
Oh, so I was at the mall, South Hill Mall, Camelot Music Store.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard the rapper BG, but he was my favorite artist at the time.
Okay.
And so I tried to steal the CD, but I wasn't like a good criminal, so I had no clue. Like, oh, these, buzzers are gonna go off when you walk out the door with this CD. I was like, you should have took the CD out of the case and put it in your pocket, but I didn't do that. So then things go off, and innocent me, I'm just like, oh, what happened? I don't know. And then they're like, yep. Then the Puyallup police showed up, took my little 12-year-old ass down to Puyallup jail, and my step parents were out of town at the time.
Shit.
And so my good friend, his dad, who was the best example of a dad that I've probably ever seen in my life, like dope dude. He came down and got me, and he's like, nah, let his little ass sit there. Nah, he did this, and so I was like, come on, please. Like, what I'm saying? My hands didn't even fit in the handcuffs all the way. Like, I could pull them off, I kept them on, but yeah. So that's the first like experience with law. But then, I got 3 DUIs, so I was dealing with the law a lot with that. A lot of assaults. The most notable one is I was at a bar, which my wife was like, get your ass home. But I was like, nah, I'm kicking it. So I ended up instigating a fight outside. We were getting ready to leave, and there was these 3 dudes talking to this chick, and I was like, y'all need to get out the way, whatever, in my polite voice, and that caused a fight. I probably started the fight, but they jumped me, 3 of them. And they're military dudes, and I only know that because one of them I had to pay for restitution for him getting discharged from the military because he couldn't see.
Oh, damn. What branch? Navy guys?
Army.
Okay.
And I was like, if this is how y'all fight, y'all need to go back to train or something.
That's Army. Don't
Yeah.
Marines.
Marines
are probably a different
I dodged
story.
a bullet with that. But so I whooped them all handedly, like all of them. Broke a guy's like orbital bone, and at the end of the fight, all the dudes were on the ground, and I'm just sitting there like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I did this. My old buddy comes out of the corner and kicks one of the dudes in the face, like full on John Ryan punt in his face.
Oh, shit.
And his whole shit was broke. And so when the cops get there, like the cops already felt some kind of way with black folks because they're always in trouble, you know, where I was at. And so and I say that because I was wearing white Jordans, light blue jeans. He had blood all over his legs and all over his pants.
White dude?
Yeah, white dude. And so then they come up, they look at everybody up and down, you know, obviously have swollen knuckles or whatever. He has blood all over. I have nothing, no blood on me, but they take me to jail for assault with a deadly weapon because like dude got kicked in his face. Anything you do to somebody when they're on the ground, you know, it's defenseless person kind of a deal.
Yeah.
And so it was a terrible time because the cops didn't like me. And I was like, I'm not a snitch, you know, but I'm like, look at his shoes. Like, I'm not the one that kicked him.
Boy out.
No, I didn't rat him out. And so then I talked to him. He's like, hey, we'll make this straight. Don't trip. We'll make it straight. Don't worry. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll just ride to the station. So rode to the station. I was watching from the back, the officer put in some details of the story that I was like, hey, bro, that's not true. I was like, you weren't even there. And you're saying parts of the story that you didn't even see to corroborate me kicking this dude. I was like, you're full of shit. Dude took a hard left. So I ended up slamming against the back because I'm not wearing a seatbelt in the back of the car. And so then I ended up going to county, you know, the whole bend over, spread your cheeks, lift your sack, cough, you know, thing, and did that whole deal.
What's that feel like knowing that you're getting booked?
At that point in my life, it's like, this is familiar.
Okay.
You know, so it was like, it's nothing, you know, I had like 20 something charges.
Damn.
Up until I was 18 years old.
Okay.
You know, so I was like, jail's nothing.
Okay. So
like,
as soon as they pulled you, when they got there and they pulled your...
Oh, yeah. They see assaults,
Okay.
lying to public servant, you know, all this stuff. Then they see, they're like, oh, yeah, this dude's a criminal. They didn't see that. You know, I could have paid him off with it, I think. But yeah, so it was... So I went to jail. My wife was like, I'm not bailing you out. So she didn't. She didn't bail me out. My stepmom had to come bail me out.
Her.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Teach your ass a lesson.
Yeah, no, it's terrible.
She told you to get home. Look what happened.
Yeah, I know. But cut that part out. You just kind of. But so I talked to my lawyer, and my lawyer is completely infatuated with my wife. You know, man, like he was just pervertedly always looking at my wife, and I'm like, hey, like,
Yeah.
you know, and he told me,
is your wife white?
yeah,
Okay.
that's my kryptonite. Okay. You know, my vanilla woman. You know,
Blame you.
but yeah. I got let out of jail, and then I was going back and forth to the detectives, and this is the most crooked thing I've ever seen the police do. I was talking to the detective, and he was like, "Did you kick him? Did you kick him?" I was like, "No, I didn't kick him. He turns off the recording, and he says, "Why don't you just tell us Chris kicked him?" And I was like, bro, if you know he did that, then go get him. But what I found out is they wanted to charge us together in like a conspiracy kind of thing. Otherwise, they had to charge us separate because I didn't do that. And I wasn't a part of that. He did that after the fact. And so I ended up talking to my lawyer, and I was like, bro, this is what they're saying. Like, and this is what they did in the interview. Like, they turned off the recorder, told me they know who kicked him, and they still don't want to go get the dude. And he was like, at this point, Bryon, you're the big bad black guy with a long rap sheet. He was like, you might as well just take the charge, you know? And so they dropped it to like an assault 3 from like 2 assault 1s, and, you know, got released into this BTC program called Breaking the Cycle, you know? So I do a day in jail, and then once I get a job, I can get out of the program and whatever. So I ended up doing that, and I was a cook at the time, and while that was going on, like I was going to church, ended up running into this guy at church that was an electrician. And he told me, he's like, hey, go to the electrical union, you know, and because they're hiring and you don't have to have any experience. So I was like, they were like, you just got to be good at math. And I'm like, no problem. I got that, you know. And so I started off as an electrician, you know, making, you know, this was 2007, you know, making like $12 an hour. And, you know, here I am 20 years later, master electrician, and got all these certifications and stuff like that. But my license got revoked because of all the DUIs that I got. And so I ended up getting my real estate license, and I was an electrician. And so I was doing both, you know, showing houses in my work truck, things like that. But while I was an apprentice, my license got revoked.
Driver's license?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like revoked, not like suspended, like you have no more license and you can't get it again in this state. And so that was a whole appeal process with the DOL. And so meanwhile, my wife is driving me to work, like driving me 40 miles one way.
Oh, damn.
And then going home, coming to get me. She works 10-hour shift. So it's like 4 10s. So that went on for a while, to the point where I was like, I was catching a bus and having a foreman come pick me up. Excuse me.
Damn, what a good ass wife you got.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's a writer. That's kind of why I asked, because that's a white woman thing to leave your ass in jail.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Black chick would have picked me up and said it was okay, baby.
That's why I was like, man, she left his ass. That's why I had to ask that.
Yeah.
And driving your ass all over the state too. Yeah. Okay.
So but yeah, she rode with me the whole time, you know, like
good for you guys.
Like in the midst of all of the drug use and all of the, you know, things that I was doing to jeopardize, you know, the marriage. The one thing that I had going good for me is I ended up getting my license back. You know, I ended up, you know, praying a bunch and doing all the stuff with DOL, got a lawyer and stuff, and they ended up getting my license back. And what was wild is that I didn't realize there was 2 Bryon Parsons with license revoked. And so I go to the hearing, and, you know, I think the hearing goes well. And then the next day they were like, yeah, no, sorry. We've decided to, you know, revoke, you know, Parsons, Bryon's license. Like, it's indefinite now. And so then I'm crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I got this new career. I got this thing, like, and I have no license. And so we prayed. And then the following week they were like, oh, sorry, we messed up. It was the other Bryon Parsons. You got your license back. And so I was
what
like,
are the chances of that happening?
It's repetitious. I hear it. Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah. So I got my license back, and it was a pinnacle moment for me, because I dropped out of high school, went through all this stuff. I was smart enough to graduate from multiple high schools, and I dropped out, went and got my GED, was with my wife for a year. We separated for 4 years. I was in jail for a bunch of other assaults. She told me that we're supposed to get married. God told her. So 7/7/07, we got married. You know, I got released in May, going through all this stuff with electrical and, you know, things that I'm trying to do, you know. And so I ended up getting my electrical license and getting my RCDD, which is Registered Communication Distribution Designer.
Okay.
So only 7,500 people in the world have it, and you can design hospitals and schools and government buildings, like fiber optic network infrastructure type stuff.
Oh, okay.
And so, like, she rode with me through all of it, you know, from the dealing with me with my drugs, you know, up until just last year. And then, you know, but the one thing that I had was, like, every time we moved, we always moved up, you know, and that was one thing that I justified all my drug use was, like, we never go backwards. And so obviously what I'm doing is helping me, you know, so I'm gonna keep on doing it, you know, and I quit, like, you know, 4 times, you know, but I just never stopped. And, you know, thank God she never stopped believing in what we had, you know, and I was blind to it, you know, like, in the middle of all my drug use, volunteering at church, head of security at a big church, you know, where I was at in Tacoma, you know, heavily involved with children's ministry, heavily on cocaine. So it was that, like you mentioned earlier, the transformer kind of a mentality. I was able to shut it off and be that godly person at church, go home, sniff rails all night, get drunk, you know, and then go back to church Sunday, volunteer 4 or 5 times a week, you know, at church, like me. So it was like,
damn,
1 foot in the world, 1 foot out.
For sure.
You know, in heaven, but out, you know.
That only lasts so long.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Till July it lasted.
You breezed over this, but you said you were in and out of jail for other assaults. What were those, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. It was just me being young and stupid. One of the instance in particular that put me in jail was I was at the AMPM in Puyallup, and the door was locked. We're trying to get in and get beer. The door was locked. The store owner, he opens up the door, and I'm like, "Hey man, your sign says door to remain unlocked during business hours. It's business hours." And he was like, "If you don't like my store, you stupid black guy, get out of my store." And so what I did with my own Christian background is I grabbed him by the back of his shirt, like in the cartoons, and I threw him into his beer pyramid because he had just stacked some beer up. Okay. Threw him into that, knocked that down. This part is hilarious to me because it was like so hilarious. I had a Dr. J jersey around my neck, and so he goes behind the counter and he picks up the phone to call, obviously, the cops. I take my jersey and do it like a towel, and I whip the phone out of his hand, which then I got interference with a 911 call because I snapped the phone out of his hand, and then I left, obviously. And so I had a warrant for my arrest because I was very, very popular in the Puyallup jail. Like anytime I go to Puyallup jail, it's Mr. Parsons, you're here again. Nice to see you. Put him in the tank, kind of thing. So it didn't take long for them to see who I was, on that camera. And then, my DUIs, my third one caught up to me, and the judge wasn't having it. And so she just put me in jail. And
how long did you do?
I did 4 months. But
how was that?
It wasn't bad. It was Pierce County, Again, it's like I've been through so much stuff. Like this is nothing. But prior to that, when the judge was like, "Nope, you're going to jail," I was like, No, I'm not. And so then I got up and left. So I got charged with escape from custody. And so then I beat up the guy at the store, and so like I'm at a house party and I hear this loud banging at the door, and I'm like, that is a closed fist knock. Don't open the door. That's the cops. Mm-hmm. This lady opens the door. As soon as she does, they put their foot in the door. And so then I'm like, fuck. I just sit on the chair. I just take the half gallon. I just start like, yep, I'm going in. And so nobody would give my name up, which was cool, seeing everybody protect me. But in the cop car, I was like, you guys are looking for me, man. My name's Bryon Parsons. And he looked and he's like, you're the AMPM guy. And I was like, yeah. And it was funny because the detectives were cracking up because they saw everything happen.
Footage, yeah.
Yeah. And so, went to jail and then kind of just sat in there. And my girlfriend, which is my wife now at the time, she hated me, rightfully so, because it's like, you didn't have a dad. You didn't have any of that. Now you have a son and you're not a dad. You're not doing all the stuff that you saw.
Just calling your shit.
Yeah. So
How
it's
old is your
just,
son at this point?
He was 4 years old.
Okay.
So, and I was in and out, like from 1 to 4, it was like, just, I'd come over, but if I'd probably be high. So I'm passed out with my son on my lap or something. Like I just wasn't a good father, and, a lot of times you can only put out what's put in. So if, you can imagine all that hate and all that, disregard for human life and lack of empathy and caring, like that's what I put out. Cause that's really all I knew,
Sure.
It's hard to do
for sure
anything otherwise. But yeah, so sat in jail and I had a girlfriend at the time. And I told my wife, which we met at a skating rink when we were 12, by the way, that's how we met each other. But I told her, I was like, hey, if you ever want to get married, I don't care who I'm with, I'll marry you. And the last argument that we got in, I was yelling at her and her mom. And I was like, I'm going to marry your daughter, whether you like it or not. And then I ended up in jail. And so, we're writing letters back and forth. And I could tell that her attitude was changing because I'm very perceptive. And I could see how the letters ended each time. The first time it was like, from Gavin. And then it was, love Gavin. And then the next letter was Gavin and Kendra. Then it was love Gavin and Kendra. And then by the 10th, final letter, she said, love Miss Parsons, and so it was like when I was in jail, my cellmates were like, we always know when you're on the phone with your baby mama versus your girlfriend because you're always smiling with your baby mama. And so like that, sitting in jail and talking to those guys and having them be perceptive and see me, I was like, yeah, I really am happy, and then, then she tells me on the phone that God told me that we're supposed to get married. And so I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I told you, I don't care who I'm with. I'll leave him. And so got out, moved in with her and her mom in May 2007. And then we got married 7/7/07 and been married, ever since.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Good for you guys. What's the worst fight you've ever been in?
Physical or with my wife?
Physical. Your wife next. I'm going to ask that one.
Yeah, that's...
You went there with that one.
Just trying to clarify.
I feel like you as a big dudes are always challenged every time you go to a bar, anything. Yeah. I asked because being a big dude, my heaviest was like 289, 290.
Oh, I remember when I was in 9th grade.
Yeah, right? Fuck, you probably were weighing that. How much do you weigh now? You're
320.
I should have finished saying. I was going to say 320. Yeah, you're a big dude. What's the worst fight you've ever been in?
The worst fight, well, the worst damage that I did to somebody, it was actually with my best friend. We were at a bar playing darts, because that's what we did. We were in a dart league, and so
okay,
at that bar they had the typical bar bully, who, like, I'm not looking for a fight, and I don't want a reason for my wife to say I can't go anymore. So I avoided confrontation. Well, unfortunately, one of the times we were playing against this dude and his team, and then my homeboy's girl at the time was like in the way-ish. And so this guy was the type of guy that as soon as you got done throwing, he was at the line ready to throw. And you're like, dude, that's not etiquette. Like, give me time to let me walk back. And so he started pissing my homeboy off. And my homeboy is a shooter, fighter, puncher. And so I'm like, okay, I cannot let him get involved because I'm an electrician. He's my best friend, and I've taught him everything about electrical. So I feel like I'm invested in just friendship, love. And it's like, I don't want him to get in trouble. So I'm going to step in front and be like, hey guys, let's get it, let's squash it. Because I had just got done giving that guy a bunch of referrals for residential because I had my real estate license. And so I was like, hey, let me use you to replace all the tiles. So we had a good relationship. So I was kind of thrown off a little bit when he got my homeboy's face. And I was like, he'll hit you. So let me get in your face. Well, he got my face and he poked me in my chest and my hands were in my pockets. And I came up out of my pocket and gave him a hook so bad. And his nose was like, he did the whole spin around and reach up, and his nose, I was like, oh my God, his nose. So he had to get reconstructive surgery. And I didn't feel bad for him because he was cheating on his girlfriend at the time and she had cancer.
Oh, that's grimy.
Yeah. So I was like, you were like, and he said that night he wanted to get in a fight. So, what was crazy is that his teammate, I'm friends with everybody, they paid my tab and they were like, get me out of here, so they got me out of there. They paid my bill. And, the guy ended up, this is wild how the story goes. The guy called my job because he knew where I worked. I worked at an electrical contractor as a project manager. He called my job, told the lady at the front desk, the cops are looking for this guy. He hit me. It's like, you were just tough 2 days ago. Oh. And now when they had to fix your nose, all of a sudden now you're like, you want to get me fired, but they didn't fire me. My job didn't care at the time. They're like, oh, that dude sounds like a bitch. And I was like, yeah, he definitely was. And so he started making new Facebook accounts and all this stuff so that because I kept blocking him. I'm like, you know what? I'm literally a shooter. I will shoot you. So I'm just going to leave it alone. So I block him. He keeps making new accounts and blah, blah, blah. And so he ended up quitting darts altogether because I talked to the bar owner and they're like, hey, he quit playing darts. We had to 86 you for a month, but you're good to come back. He's done playing darts. He's never going to play darts again. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done playing darts too. My wife said she didn't want me there, so I'm not going to be there. So I'm going to go with my other best friend and I'm going to go bowling because let's just go bowling. The first day of league bowling, you'll never guess who the hell was sitting right in the seat, looking right at me after he said he was going to kill me, and here I am alive and shit. So it didn't work out,
You start a whole new sport. This dude is sitting right there.
Yep.
Bro,
first person I seen in the league.
Craziest life of shit happening.
So I was like, you know what? I can't do this. I'm not going to, I ain't no bitch by any stretch, but I'm not going to entertain a situation where this can end very badly.
You know it's going to.
Yeah. And I think he got his in the end. He actually just died last year in a motorcycle accident. He got drunk and wrecked. So I think he got his in the end, But But that's just how I feel about it. You know, no real mercy for him. But yeah, so I offered to pay for his surgery and all that, and he said no. He just wanted me to go to jail, and it was self-defense because it was on camera that he put his hands up, and then I just relocated his nose, and that was the end of that. And so then my wife was like, "Yep, no more. You're not going anywhere anymore." You know, so that's kind of how that shook out.
Yeah, that happens, man. Especially being the big guy. I'm sure.
Yeah.
It is.
The big nice guy, like the big teddy bear guy, the guy that's like, you know, super nice to everybody, but it's like the switch, man, just like.
Well, there's always the guy too, because I went through a stint for a while where I went completely sober, but I had DD for all my buddies and shit. And it was right in like my peak, biggest physical fitness stage, you know, when I was just ginormous for my size. And so I'd always be sober. I'd always just be drinking a water at the bar.
Yeah.
And it was like every fucking time, man, somebody would want to challenge and step up. And I was like, I'm not even trying to fight tonight. Like I'm completely. And then there's always the wasted dude. It's like, dude, you don't want to do this. Like I'm trying to help you right now. Like I'm cool. We don't need to fight. And it was like, always. That's why I asked.
It was always on fight night. Like that's when the most fights happen.
UFC nights and shit.
Yeah, UFC nights. It's like
everyone amped up.
It's like great, you know.
Well, I used to bounce at a bar in Temecula. There's a fucking
California wine country,
dude. There's all these Gracie gym right down. So every dude in the bar all had cauliflower ear, and then they had to be a fight night, bro. That's when God. I had just tell my wife, like I'd be like, hey, if it's boring night tonight, roll through so we could kick something off. And it was like, and it would just be the biggest brawls of my life working down there. And everybody thought they were a pro fighter. And every time, every fight night, it was.
That's funny you say that, because I was a bouncer too when I was 17 in DC. Bouncer at strip clubs.
Oh God, how was that?
That was probably
17.
That was one of my first like girlfriends was a stripper named Honey, and she had a missing tooth because it was DC, so it's like it's kind of. You know,
C-section scar too, or what?
Tiger stripes, the whole nine. You know, so but then you know they didn't care how old you were. Just can you fight if you need to? And I was like, yeah, I can fight. So you know, at that time I was only like 170 pounds, but I could square up though.
Yeah.
I've always been able to fight. You know, and that's been a good thing and a bad thing, honestly.
Hold on, your first girlfriend was a stripper named Honey missing a tooth?
Yeah, front tooth too. It was a big joint, not one of them molar joints, you know. And it's like, wow, what is that? Don't ever turn your head to the side.
It was a straight up front one.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a big joint. Yeah, it was
that was probably a wild ride.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. Yeah, especially like when her boyfriend showed up or whatever. Like that was it was not a good time. So that job didn't last, but I just thought it was funny because you were a bouncer too.
Dude, bouncing's one of the craziest jobs, especially if you're in the right bar.
Yeah,
bro. I worked at this one bar. This dude, I was in there, I think, with my wife, and he's like, "Man, you're a big dude." He's like, "What do you do for work?" I was like, "Oh, I'm in the Marines." And he's like, "I'll pay you to come in here and just fight people for us." And I was like, well, "How much?" It was like $25 an hour, and I was like, "You're going to pay me just to come in here and fight drunk people for you?" He's like, "If you're interested." I'm like, "Absolutely." And he's like, "You could hire all your friends too." So it was just a bunch of Marines.
Is he still hiring?
Oh, this place, actually, I think he ended up going down for like fraud. I think he tried to catch the place on fire. It was like this whole shit. But man, that place would go from like the most elegant wine and cheese and just the most perfect white people setting. And then like, would switch, and it was just the craziest bar, fist fighting. I mean, it was insane. I mean, I would come home every Friday and Saturday, just beat up, fighting people, and it gets old after a little bit. That's why I see some of these old timers, like the OGs, that are still bouncing certain places. I'm like, man,
ashy knuckles and all that. Yeah,
I'm like, you've been through some shit working in these bars your whole life.
Yeah, you never want to move up, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Man, you have lived a freaking life. So, where are we? I don't even know where we are in your life story. You beat up 3 Army dogs, ended up getting in trouble for that shit.
Yeah, just killed somebody 3 years ago.
You what?
Just killed somebody 3 years ago.
You did?
Yeah. Got in a shootout.
You got?
Yep, legal. It was legal. I got my rights reinstated, everything. Like I was building guns and all that stuff. So
How are you not a felon at this point? How many times you've been?
I have felonies. Yeah.
You're able to own guns?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I got a U-pin and everything. And it's because I went through all the steps. I paid off all my restitution. I reapplied for my civil rights in Washington.
How much did you end up paying in restitution for people?
I want to say it was close to 30 grand.
30?
Yeah. And that was,
Okay.
15, 16 years ago. So.
Okay, hold on. So you killed a dude in a shootout.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk? You cool with talking about that?
Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah.
Fucking A. All right, let's hear this.
Yeah. No, it's so. Like I said before, I was in real estate. A good friend of mine bought a house. Yeah, you got the seatbelt on. Yeah, a good friend of mine bought a house from me. He wanted to move to another house, but he wanted to maintain this house as a rental. So I was like, no problem. He was like, I'm thinking about renting to your little brother, the same little brother we've been talking about.
Yep.
And I was like, hey man, you're a grown up, and you can do what you want, but this is a very bad idea because my little brother is on drugs. And so he's like, okay, cool. Let my brother move in, rented the house.
Right.
So the house turned into a drug house, and at the time, my nephew was in and out of that house. And so when they all got evicted, my stepdad was like, Bryon, can you go to that house and get, Junior stuff? Because he had a bed, skateboard, he had all this stuff, and I had just got a brand new truck. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go there. I'll go there and pick up all the stuff, because my buddy wanted to go there and check out all the damage. I mean, because there was literally a chopped up cars. Like I had never seen a car. It was like cut in half, like the front and back, and it was folded up. It was
tweaker shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I show up with my buddy and his mom and a whole group of people. And so we start going through the house and looking at stuff. Well, I find an ounce of meth in one of the drawers. And I'm like, I love cocaine, but I look down at people that do this, And so we ended up flushing it down the toilet. And so a dude shows up in a Honda and he's like, hey, I just want to come get my mattress. And I was like, bro, you're in a Honda. You're not here for the mattress. I was like, we flushed the dope down the toilet. So that's gone. And so he was pissed. He was super pissed. And so he was mad that he got evicted, mad that his dope got flushed. So he's like, well, let me go grab some stuff. And so like my homie had just got out of prison for stabbing somebody. So he's not the guy to play with because he'll stab you. And so
clearly,
so the guy goes in the house and he's just talking crap. And I was like, bro, you just ruined my buddy's house. He's not playing with you. Like, I'm going to let him take off. Like, stop. He didn't stop. So my homeboy stomped him out, let him get a good 5-6 stomps in. I pulled him off and I was like, hey man, let him get his stuff. And he's like, okay. And he was like, can I have my brother come? The smoker dude. Can I have my brother come? Because I want to have him help me get stuff. And my buddy was like, hell no. And I was like, bro, the more stuff you let him get, the less stuff you and your folks got to deal with. So like, let's just go outside, let him call his people, and we'll just sit there. So the house is a split level house. So the garage is, probably 3 feet lower than the grass bluff. You walk up and you have to go into the house and you can go up or down from that point.
Yeah.
And so the grass bluff's like 2-3 feet. And so we're sitting in the driveway in a little circle. And this greasy white dude shows up wearing a swishy outfit, long hair, hat pulled down over his eyes. And he walks right in the middle of our circle. And I was like, I've been pretty calm up until this point. But one, you stink and you just like blasted through the circle disrespectfully. I was like, now I'm going to have to stomp you out. So I put aggressive hands on homeboy and so chased him out of the house. Now, if you can't tell, I'm not a runner. So I chased him as far as I could breathe,
to the end of the sidewalk.
Yeah. And then I walked back.
Yeah.
And so then I tell my buddy, I was like, hey, his car's here. So he is going to come back. So when he comes back, like everybody go into the garage, stay out of the way. And I'm going to walk up here on this bluff so that if he does anything, he's looking at me and he's not just, shooting into a crowd. Cause I always figured like, the bullets from a cow would kill you just the same as somebody, who's gangster. So I was like, just be safe. So I have my Glock 19X on me, my favorite handgun to this day. It's still in my safe. I pulled it out and I put it behind my back, racked and loaded, ready to go, just in case. So the dude gets in his car. He backs up super fast, slams on the brakes, rolls down the window. And I'm like, oh shit, here it's about to jump off. He points a gun out the window, starts shooting. He missed, obviously, and at that point, like I'm an addict, a supreme addict. So I was building polymer 80 Glocks. I was building 80% lower AR-15s. I was training with weapons all the time because that was my new, drug of choice that I was.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking addict. Okay, drug addict. You're talking. You're obsessed.
Yeah, I
with
was
guns.
obsessed
Okay,
with guns.
okay.
And so I have impeccable aim. And so the dude, he floors it, and then I just unload on him. My first shot hit his back window. I adjusted and put 4 shots in him in the side of his chest. And as soon as I heard him screaming, I was like, got him. So I stopped shooting, and I'm a law-abiding citizen, minus his cocaine use at this point. So I called the police, and I'm like, hey, I just shot somebody, blah, blah, blah. So those guys didn't have nothing to do that night because 15 cars showed up.
For sure.
No lights, no nothing. They just show up, and I was like, I just talked to y'all and told you, and they were like, put your guns in your car, and I had 4 or 5 guns with me because I want to make sure everybody has a gun if we get in a shootout, and so they end up showing up there. They end up putting me in the back of a cop car, which is fine. I understand they wanted to separate the person, from everybody else so that they don't influence the story,
whatever it is, yeah,
which fine. So, but I still had my phone on me, and at that point. Like, okay, before that point, I called my wife and I was like, babe, I just smoked somebody at Zach's house. Can you come down the road? And because it was 2 miles away from my house, the same house that I almost kicked Homeboy off of the front steps of, that same house. So she gets there, and I see my son's pocket is like, I'm like, Gavin, what is in your pocket? And he's like, your Glock 42. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So then the cops get there. I'm like, put it in mom's purse now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm in the back of the cop car now with my phone, and texting my wife and whatnot. She parks in the same exact spot as Homeboy who backed out. And so when we're like, it was right here, now they're all around the car with flashlights. And so I knew something was up because they shined it in my wife's back seat, and then they went back down, and they went back quick again to the window. And I was like, babe, what the hell is in your back seat? And she was like, I brought all your guns. And I was like, oh my God.
I mean, at least a ride or die.
Oh, 100%.
They showed up ready to roll.
The detectives came, and they pulled out all of the guns and laid them all on the front porch or on the front little bluff there. So I was like, the optics of this is horrible. Like, yeah, I called y'all, but I shot dude, and they were like, your husband obviously is an avid gun guy because he has a lot of, polymer 80s, those ghost Glocks, like I have a ton of those.
Are those legal in Washington? Is it all?
Not anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, the liberals took over.
Yeah.
But because I was having those guns shipped to my house, the whole kit from polymer80.com.
Yeah.
They would come to my house, and I build them up, drill them, mill them, use them, So I'm in the back of the cop car. Now, a little bit of backstory with this. My stepmom had a pill problem her whole life that I knew her. She ended up having a back problem or hip issue. There was some sort of issue where she got prescribed oxycodone.
Okay.
She overdosed on the oxycodone and was incapacitated, fell into a coma. So this is going on at the same time.
Okay.
So that's why my stepdad asked me to do this stuff, is because they were dealing with her in the hospital. She was unresponsive, and she ended up, everything just shut down. Mm-hmm. She was in the ICU. I'm the power of attorney. So the whipping boy that grew up with all these issues and abuse is now responsible for your life if you can't make a decision on your own. So so she's in the ICU while all this is going on with me shooting dude and all that stuff. And so I'm sitting with the detectives, and I'm going through the whole deal on their whiteboard. I can still see it to this day. I'm showing them, like, I was here, Here's the car. Here's where I was. Here's where he was. He backed out. You'll find 5 rounds that are mine right here. I don't know if you'll find his. It could have been a revolver. I have no idea. And I was like, once I hit him, I made sure of all my surroundings. I looked everywhere and made sure that there was nobody, like I needed to be on target, but I still had a right to defend myself.
Yeah.
And they were like, you really know your guns. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, and you are a way better shot than him. And I was like, yeah, but why you say that? And they're like, well, because he died. They couldn't pull the bullets out, And I'm like, yeah, those are them hollow tips. That's what'll happen, And so they were like, you really seem to know your guns and you really know the responsibility of having a gun. And I was like, yeah, I'm a 2-time felon with my gun rights reinstated. I have to know the law. And they're like, but there was just something that you're not saying that we need to hear from you, but we can't tell you. And I was like, what? I was like, I was afraid for my life because I was never afraid. Like nobody really ever knows how gangster they are until they're in a gangster situation. And thank God something happened and I was able to spring into action and have no fear. Like I just acted and I stopped and I was cool, calm, and collected. And so they were like, okay, cool. In the middle of that conversation, I get a call from the hospital. And this is during COVID, this is 2020 or 2021, something like that. And they were like, and they usually called me at like 11 o'clock in the morning every day or 7 in the morning every day because they wanted to know, like, my stepmom was intubated, she was in ICU. She was unresponsive. She couldn't talk anymore. She was in a coma so much. And the last video that we actually had, it was me and my wife and my son on an iPad, in my office looking, talking to her on an iPad. And she couldn't talk. She had a thing for tomatoes and salt and pepper. And so like she told a lady like salt and pepper, tomato. And I was like, oh, my mom's hungry because that's what she likes to eat. And then she saw all of us and she looked right at me and then she said, I love you guys. So at that point, when they talked to me on the phone, they were like, if we call you again, you need to get to the hospital because if we call you, it's for something serious. And so they called me, like my truck got impounded, by the same police department. They took my guns for 9 months, hoping that I would let them claim them and sell them at a cop auction. So like I was dealing with that stuff. And then I get the call at 7 o'clock in the morning and they're like, you need to get to the hospital. And so I was like, okay.
Yep.
So I get to the hospital. 5 people come in the room. One of them dressed like a preacher. And I was like, I already know what y'all about to say.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, let me guess, y'all done everything you can do, and now you just want to give her morphine until she fucking dies, And in a nutshell, it was, yeah. So I was like, well, they were like, we can intubate her again, but if we intubate her again and pull her off, she's going to live the rest of her life in a mental facility because all of her faculties are gone. She already had the issue in the coma where she couldn't talk anymore. So she was nonverbal and she was just out. Her, she had a blood disease because she smoked so much. So like she was missing toes. She had a colostomy bag. She had black sores all over her mouth. And she was just like, so I was like, just make her comfortable. And I was like, and I'm calling my wife and my son. I said, I don't give a shit about none of y'all COVID, nothing. My family's coming. And so then they let him in, they let my family come in there.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All 3 of them, me, my wife and my son were in there. And I've seen death. Like I've seen death, but it was always with like people that don't like matter to me.
For sure.
And so what made it hard was like, when you're sitting there and you're holding somebody's lifeless hand, you're watching on the screen in the, out in the hallway and which room is hers. And so you see her breath slow down. You see the pulse go down, like, death is coming. And when it's somebody you care about, like you're not like, I'm not thinking of like all the abuse. I'm not thinking of like her hating me and not wanting me there. All I'm thinking about is she wanted me to be responsible for her life, because through all the bullshit, you know, at least she saw the genuine, you know, nature of my heart. So I had to make the decision, pull her off.
How was that?
It was tough because I just killed somebody the night before, and now this is the next day, and I'm having to pull my mom, you know, off of life support.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was one of the worst times of my life, just because my son's addiction got outed. You know, we kind of found out about that senior year in high school for him. He, you know, left school and was doing MDMA and acid and all this other stuff. So he left. I was kind of getting attacked by my wife and my son because I wanted to have my stepmom's funeral thing at our house. And she, like, at that point, rightfully so, it was, my son was pitting my wife against me. And so that kind of created a volatile environment where I was getting yelled at and chastised for wanting to have my stepmom's, you know, thing at the house. And so it was just like, I'm just being attacked, you know. So it's like I'm dealing. So it's like, so I get through it. I get through all of it. End up doing a, you know, funeral, getting her buried, handling all the stuff. She owned the house that she was in, and so I had to deal with selling that, you know, and working through all that stuff. And my sister didn't have a place to live, so I converted that rental, that house into a rental. I made that part of the closing documents of the, you know, when the deal was done in escrow, like, my sister has to live here. There's going to be her rent every month. And so I paid rent for her, and I was kind of working through all that. My stepdad's living there, you know, and so I ended up buying him a car, like, because he had nowhere to get around, because my mom's car got repossessed because, you know, she wasn't making payments anymore because she wasn't alive. And so I got was
nightmare,
dude. It's not even done yet. And so we get through it. We get through it. We're working with my son, you know, like, we kicked him out. The mother-in-law came, picked him up, you know, around the corner against our wishes. So kind of just violated our parenting and kind of caused a lot of tension. And that tension lasted, you know, just literally up until like last year, essentially. So my stepdad had leukemia, had a stent in his heart, was a terrible eater. And so, he was up checking my nephew, Junior, the same one who I got his stuff from the house and all that stuff. He had diabetes. So he was up in the middle of the night, 4 months later, checking his sugar levels in his blood. And he fell over and died, like right there, like right.
4 months after his wife died, after your stepmom.
So ex-wife, he got divorced, remarried, got separated from that lady, moved back in with
That's why you were the power of attorney. They were no longer together.
Yeah, and I was just the only one that had the wherewithal. I was the only responsible one.
Okay.
So
yeah, man.
Yeah, and this kind of goes back to the beginning of, like, I was so angry because he died and he was loved. Like, I set up a huge event at this veterans bingo hall. You know, I had it catered by one of his firefighter friends that had, you know, huge, you could fit a car in these smokers. They showed up. They brought his truck that he used to drive, brought it to the bingo hall, raised the ladder up. You know, we had music, you know, like, we did the color guard, you know, they had the bagpipes. Like, I set up everything. Like, I set up everything. And, you know, while I was sad, I just sat back and I'm like, you fucking people, like, have put me through hell up until your death. Mm-hmm. You hated my guts, and now I'm responsible for everything. Like, okay, God, I'm done with it. And so we did it. The ceremony was beautiful. I mean, everything was like, it was just so beautiful, and it just really made me feel some kind of way because of the hundreds and hundreds of people that called and showed up in their uniforms. And it's like, y'all seeing the man in the uniform, and I'm seeing this piece of shit dad who was mentally and physically abusive, you know, like my whole life,
Yeah.
my whole entire life. And so that was a very, very tough moment at that point, because it's like, what do I do now? I just buried these two people that I love. I hated them for dying the way they did, and they depended on me. I had to go through all that still, and now I'm dealing with my son with addiction issues, because addiction runs deep on both sides, the family. There's addiction or drugs and stuff. So that became a struggle, and that's been a struggle, ever since. It's been 8 years since that happened.
You mentioned that you kicked your son out. As a dad, I could never imagine getting to a point where I had to remove a kid, kick a kid out. What's that like, coming to that decision that you have to remove your son from the home?
I thought it was going to be a short-lived decision because I knew he couldn't rough it. Like when I said you can either go to treatment or you can leave, he chose to leave. And I was like, that's fine. We live in a nice neighborhood, very expensive home. Like, you're going to be outside for a few days, and then that's going to be your breaking point. And so then you're like, you'll come back. I had faith. My son is a survivor like me. So unbeknownst to us, my mother-in-law picked him up.
So your wife's mom.
Yeah. Picked him up and let him live in her one-bedroom apartment with her for a year.
So he went to grandma's house.
Yep.
And you didn't
kicked
know
her
this?
out of her room. Oh, I knew it at some, like, I ended up finding out, and that's when I became very resentful of her mom, because I was like, she is not his mom, and she's stepping in, she's talking terrible about my wife, saying that you're a terrible mom. Bryan's abusive. I'm the big, bad, mean guy, to everybody. And so it's like, here we go again. Mm-hmm. I'm getting hated for shit that I didn't do. I'm getting, mentally fucked with for reasons of like things that I didn't do. So it's like, here we go again, same old shit. And so that that caused a lot of tension for us, because he basically, I think he pushed her out of her room, so she was sleeping on her own couch.
Oh, hell no.
And she was allowing him to still do whatever he wanted to do. And so
he's got no accountability,
none.
Nothing. He's not learning anything.
Biggest safety net in life. And I think that's been, an unfortunate event. But so meanwhile, I'm at a senior level position at my company that I'm at. I'm a senior security design engineer. So I'm designing security systems for government entities.
Okay.
Such as the fire department. So I design security systems for the whole entire fire department, all in the area that I live in, because that's where I start, like where I'm comfortable with. My stepdad's a firefighter. My shoe-in, now I'm selling stuff to the firefighters. We get a phone call from her mom saying Gavin is unresponsive in the bed. And we're like, here's the call that we were waiting for. So we get there, get to her house, and he's in the bed, unresponsive. And I look around the room. His teeth and lips are purple, and there's wine bottles everywhere. So I'm like, this dude is drunk. Like, we don't know because of what he did, but I can just assume. So we call the fire department. So this was another embarrassing moment, because these same firefighters that showed up that had carried my son down 3 flights of stairs were the same ones that I was just with, the picture perfect Bryon, it's soulless security stuff. We know this guy really good. And now those same fire department guy, folks are carrying my son down to the hospital.
Was this terrifying? I mean, finding your son unresponsive in a bed. I mean, did you know it was drugs immediately? I mean,
I knew it was drugs, because that's when he got kicked out. It was because I found MDMA in his room.
Oh, shit. Okay. What's MDMA look like? Was it pill?
It was brown powder.
Okay.
And so I initially thought it was heroin.
Oh.
And so then I looked at it and found out what it was. And so then, and this, like, him and my wife caught me on camera, because I have a ton of cameras at my house, getting cocaine from one of my buddies in the garage, because I knew where the cameras were at, and I just was drunk or something. And so, like, they had caught me, doing cocaine, multiple times.
And your wife didn't really know at this point?
She knew, but I think she was in survival mode too.
Okay.
You know, and it's like, okay, my husband's not hitting me. You know, he's a little unreasonable at times, but he's an excellent provider, you know, and I know he loves me. So I think she put up with a lot of stuff that, you know, essentially she shouldn't have, but thank God she did. And so like my son has now been introduced to me having drug issues. He knows about my family having drug issues. He knows about my, you know, my mom, my brothers, everyone in my family has drug issues. I mean, my crazy ass uncle got so high on methamphetamines that he tried to slap stop a table saw with his hand, and it sliced his hand off and threw his fingers everywhere in the garage.
Jeez.
Like, so drug runs deep, like in my neck of the woods.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Of course.
Being a dad that obviously uses coke, and you've had a problem with it for a long time, is it hard to punish or correct your son finding him doing drugs? Meanwhile, you're doing drugs.
Yeah.
Was there ever a conflict? And I'm just asking.
Yeah.
More like,
well, because it's a very hypocritical view of
Absolutely.
me to be like condemning. And so what I did is the way I framed it. I was like, look, I can't tell you to stop doing drugs because I'm doing drugs. But what I can tell you is that I do drugs and I don't let them control my life. So I'm a steady incline up. We're always moving to a nicer house, bigger house.
So you thought at least.
So it's like, so I was like, if you need to have control of it.
Okay.
But so I never condemned him for drugs because it's extremely hypocritical to do that. But I tried to explain to him the best way I could, you know, which was, again, not very loving. It was kind of, you know, I didn't really understand his point of view, his reasoning. So I'm like, I'm doing drugs and I'm doing all this stuff, providing all this stuff. Like, you can do the same. You're better than me. And so it just didn't click to me that I wasn't showing love or being a loving father. I was just being that black and white light switch on or off. Like, you know, you can't be half pregnant. So it's like, you can fix this. So why don't you? Like, you know, it's like, it almost came to my mind, like, maybe at some point we can do drugs together, you know, like me and my mom did, you know, kind of a deal, you know. And, you know, it's like you can only put in what, you know, put out what's put into you. And so that, it was a very bad time for us then, you know, because, yeah, you have that hypocritical stance, but you're right. You know, you say a lot of good stuff, you know, but so did Bill Cosby, you know. So it's tough. Like, how do you say don't do it while you're doing it?
That's why I ask. I mean, in hindsight, do you feel that you should have gone a different route with him instead of being like, hey, just be smart about it or whatever? Or,
100%. I should have not let him walk out the house, you know. In hindsight, like I should have done what I'm doing now, you know, being a loving father, being understanding, you know. I'm 100% sober myself now. I don't take anything mind altering. And so I should have been an example. And the thing is like, I knew exactly what to do. I just didn't want to do it, you know, just like Paul said in the Bible, you know, the things that I know I should do, I don't do. The things I shouldn't do, I do, you know, and that's kind of what it is, like, do as I say, not as I do kind of a thing. And that doesn't fly, you know,
especially as they start to get older. They could read your bullshit.
Get smarter, you know, stuff like that. And so he has the same gifts as me, you know, and so he was in and out of treatment multiple times, and he has very good skills with survivability and being able to pull wool over people's eyes, you know, just like me. Okay. And so it's been a battle since he was 15. You know, literally just today had a blow up, and now we're looking at clean and sober living for him, you know, because it's like, even so it's something that I still deal with to this day.
As a dad that has a kid that's, you know, using, he's got obviously a problem. For people listening, like, what are some of the things that they can do? I guess the reason I'm asking is because we have a guest. I had a guest on recently, and man, he spent the better half of his life like hardcore just addict. Clean, helps out a lot of people now. It does incredible. It completely changed his life around. It's incredible. But his mom always kind of enabled and always would be there to help and be there to support her son. When you found out that, I guess my question would be, when you found out that your son was using for the first time, whatever it may be, is there a different path you would have taken, or now that you've gone years of dealing with this and in and out of homes and whatever it may be, is there something people should, I guess I don't know how to ask the question because there's really no right or wrong answer for this. I guess being in all the scenarios and the situations that you've been with your son as an addict, what would you have done, or is there anything you would have done differently in the beginning stages to try to like nip it as soon as possible? Or
being on stuff myself, like I had the tools, but I just wasn't wise enough to use them. Like the way that I responded, like you said, hindsight's 2020. Like, yeah, I should have did stuff different. I should have not let him go out that door. I should have been loving, and that's the thing, is that when you're an addict, your mind is not, you're always in survivor mode. You're trying to figure out how to get your next fix. Meanwhile, I'm trying to rationalize how to handle my son. So it really wasn't even like, I wasn't loving in my responses. And so it's like, because I didn't know how to love at that point. I don't think I cared about anybody, I had the facade of, yeah, I got a family and my family cares for me and I care for my family. But deep down, you really don't. You care about your own stuff. And so,
for sure.
So it wasn't a surprise. And so I just unfortunately handled it like as it wasn't a surprise to me. It's like, go figure. Like, this is just par for the course. Everybody in my family does drugs. So how do we fix it? Oh, we can't? Okay, cool. You got to get out. It's tough having a clouded mind and trying to make loving decisions. You
Sure.
can't do that. And so it's hard. Like, you got to meet people where they're at. I've said multiple times that it takes an addict or an ex-addict to help a current addict out of a circumstance or situation. And so I feel like now I'm a better help.
Okay.
But things are hard because he's still in it, and now we're 8 years later. And so even though now I'm 100% sober, I'm volunteering in a church. We do church stuff 4 times a week, 3-4 times a week. And, we try to be loving, and we try to do all this loving stuff, but it's like, sometimes it feels like it's too late. Like, I should have did this a long time ago,
Okay. So that's a question. Is it ever too late for your kids?
In my prayers, I would say no, but me and my carnal mind, what I see, that's the fruit. Like, the fruit that I see, that tells me whether the tree is grown or not. And when I don't see fruit, hey, I have faith in God, a ton of it, and I believe. But in my own human brain, I'm like, this is never going to change because I know what it took for me, 42-year-old man on his deathbed in the hospital. That's what it took for me.
That was your rock bottom. His
rock bottom, he hasn't hit yet because we've provided a safety net, the whole time, whether it be his mom or his grandma or us, So, I mean, every time he's left and come back, because it's been multiple times, we've learned more, and I've learned how to be better, but now it's like, now at this last stage, like, I'm the best version of myself that I've ever been. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, I just can't reach him.
That's got to be really frustrating, huh? Yeah. Damn. Yeah, that's probably really rough, especially a lot of people's rock bottoms they don't come back from.
Yeah.
So is it just, you feel like it's kind of just a waiting game now for him to hit his rock bottom, or is it, you're hoping for these homes?
We're trying to get him involved in, the church and the porch and things like that. We're trying to really get him involved, and we're trying to have faith. We got 100 people praying for him, and
for sure.
But what I learned through my own addiction is that 100 people can want it for you, and 100 people can pray for you.
Oh yeah.
But you are the one that has to make a decision on what you do and don't do. Like, do you want to get better? Yes or no? Okay. If you do, are you willing to do things that you've never done before to get a result that you've never had before? Mm-hmm. Because isn't that the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. Mm-hmm. So it's the angle that we view it now is, it's like, I still have faith, and I don't really ever feel like it's too late, but sometimes in your spirit you can become defeated, because I've gone through all of these things in my life, for a reason, and I don't know what that reason is, other than to maybe help somebody. And then you have all of this life wisdom, all of these circumstances that you've been through, and you try to put that into somebody else, you know, in a condensed form, like I've done this, I've done that, you know, and all this, and then they don't accept it. It's like they have to touch the stove to know it's hot. They don't trust you when you say it is. And that makes it very difficult, especially now being of sober mind. Like I really feel like being on, you know, this is my second podcast. I really feel like being on this podcast is accountability for me because I take pride in my sobriety. And I feel like if I was to go back, you know, even if I'm just smoking a CBD joint that doesn't have any weed in it, if I was to do anything mind altering, I feel like if somebody saw me do that, they would look at me a certain way, and then they would look down on my family a certain way. Like, oh, wow, you're leading people. You're talking about it on the podcast. Sure. That you don't do this and that.
Sure.
And so I make it a point to use my stubbornness to not give into the fleshly things that I want to do. Like I want to drink still. Like I can make a call and get some blow up here in no time, you know, and I fly back and forth to Washington all the time. And that's how I was mainly transporting cocaine, was on planes. Like it's easy. So, but for me, the thing that's most important is the way, not necessarily I'm viewed, but my family that's following me is viewed. And so if I slip up, it's not just somebody looking at me, because I could give a shit what anybody thinks about me. Mm-hmm. I don't want anybody, you know, looking down at their nose at my wife, you know, and because, you know, she's had my back this whole time. So I feel like it's important for me to be 100% sober at this point. And now it's like, shit, I feel like I've conquered life. Like I've been through hell and back. Almost lost my life multiple times. I've been through the whole drug thing. I've dealt with family and drugs, and like, and my son has seen all of it. And so it's like, now I'm at finally halfway through my life, and I feel like all the information that I need to be able to help guide somebody through their life, and trying to put it in them.
Yeah. I
And it's just like, nah, I don't want it. And
Yeah.
you're like, I know what's at the end of this road. Like I know what it is, and it's your bottom. And like you said, it's not a lot of people come back from the bottom, you know? And so it's hard actually now, it's having true love in my heart and, you know, true sobriety. Now it's really hard looking at my son, knowing that I'm doing like everything I can, and it's just not working.
It's not enough, huh? Have you sat down? When's the last time you sat and talked to him?
This morning.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That didn't go over very well?
No, it usually doesn't. You know, he finds a way to get what he needs, you know, and it's getting to the point where we're like, you know, hey, we can't babysit a 23-year-old man, you know, and it's like our marriage in the house comes first. That's the most important thing, you know, and so that's what we got to guard first and foremost, is our marriage and stuff. And so, you know, hopefully I can look at this podcast in 6 months and be like, man, that was a rough time, but we're out of it. But, you know, this is literally the middle of the storm.
For sure. And
I'm of sound mind and trying to take better care of myself, you know, doing all the things that I should have done. And while it feels like sometimes it's too late, I know with God in the mix, there's nothing that's too late or, you know, too far gone for him to bring it back. And, you know, it's like, God, I know dang well you didn't just save my black ass through all of this stuff just so I can see my son go down a path and never return from it. Like that's not the God that I follow. So like, I need to have faith regardless of what I feel like, you know, in the moment, you know, even today.
Well, it's easy to praise him when you're standing on the mountaintops.
Yeah. Jailhouse Christian. It's easy to love God in jail. Yep.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
When you're standing in the valleys, man, that's when it matters the most.
Yeah. So that's so prayer has been huge for me. Like I'm praying for people that I hate now through emails. Like I'm praying.
Can we talk about prayer?
Yeah.
I think prayer is one of the most powerful things
Yeah.
on this planet. Changes me every time. I get emotional talking about prayer. What does prayer do to you? How's prayer helped you?
Prayer has helped me by showing me that I can't do this by myself. Mm-hmm. And the same God that got me through everything that I've been through, he can get me through this. Like I've stared death in the face multiple times, and I heard this pastor say, sometime your calling is so big that the Lord won't even let you mess it up. Like, won't even let you mess up your own calling. And I feel like that's what has happened to me, is that the calling is too big. So, like,
no matter how much we don't listen.
No, exactly. And so now praying is not something that I do. I didn't even start praying until a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Just because it's like, God got me, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep doing me, and he's going to protect me because he always does.
Been good to this point.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the deal? But being sober and praying and putting true faith in God and having some godly brothers and sisters around you, because I do a men's group on Saturday and I do a couples group on Thursday, and it's been a godsend. Like, it's taught me how to pray. It's like I knew all along that this is what I should have been doing. Like, I should have been, praying for my wife, like, out loud. I should be praying for my son out loud, like.
You said you should be?
I should be, yeah. Oh. As a man, no, I didn't used to.
Okay.
But I knew I should, and now I do that. Now I pray out loud.
You pray with your wife?
Yeah, pray with my wife, pray for my wife, put hands on her, in Jesus' name, kind of way, and make sure that she knows that, like, I'm a good man, I'm a good leader, and so that she can truly follow me, because back in the day, she'd only follow me if our paths aligned. If she didn't agree, then it was like, nope, I don't want to follow you. And so now it's like, and it feels good. There's so much power in it. I mean, it's not like a quick fix, like some things take time, but there are some times that I pray that God moves, like, immediately. And it's like, and those are when it comes from my heart, and that's truly what I want. And it's not for the betterment of myself. It's for the betterment of others and true love. That's when God comes through, and that's, it says faith, the size of a mustard seed can move a mountain, and so this is one of those mountains that I'm trying to move right now is, but it's like I told my wife, it took me 42 years to get this fat. I'm not gonna get skinny overnight. And so it's the same thing with prayer. Like, it took me this long to get to this point. I can't expect things to change overnight just because all of a sudden now I'm praying, all of a sudden. But God still moves regardless in my life, and he's seen it, and the things that I say out loud, in his name that I want to happen, they happen. And, like, I was going to get my car washed, because I got some vanity issues. I like to be shining all the time. And I drove by, I was on Chinden, and I saw Rock Harbor, and I was like, wow, that looks like a big corporate, church there. Like, let's just go, because that's what we're used to. I was like, I haven't been to church in 2 years. So that, then we go. And then the first day, the pastor comes up to me and talks to me. Like, yeah, Keith comes up.
He used to be our neighbor. He lived right behind us.
Oh, word, really?
Yeah, his kids used to mow my lawn. That's how we ended up going there.
That's amazing, man. Yeah. He's such a dope dude. I can't even.
He is. It frustrates me that I love the church. I hate what it's become size wise, because I want to protect it and have the old school.
Like, at the same time, that's somebody's prayer
for sure.
You know what I'm saying? So it's
100%.
It's like getting into that parking lot the first time. I was like, bro, this is not no thanks. Like, but
I'm the same way.
But when you think about it from the perspective of somebody's been praying for this. For the whole time, and now they've got it. Don't go in there and crap on somebody's prayer.
Look at how many people it's changing.
Yeah.
Just because I don't like the crowd.
Yeah.
Because I've watched it grow into what it is. Right now we're like, oh God, it takes you 30 minutes to get out of a parking lot. But there's something about that dude.
Yeah.
That when he talks, I swear that they get the spotlight and like, and it's like, and I'm sweating in there. Yeah. Like, I know how it is. 100%. He's just staring the whole entire time straight at me, just like preaching straight. And that's the only church that I've had that where I feel so not every time, but like in the early years, we're so convicted. My whole back would be drenched. And I'm sitting, I could feel it just dripping. I swear it's like he knows I'm coming, so he builds this whole scripture based off of what's going on in my life at that point.
Yeah, everything is applied to my life.
So it's such an incredible place, and I mean the fact that she's a youth leader there and does incredible things, and like it's such a great place.
Yeah, no, it's been a godsend, and I obviously stick out like
Yeah.
a big
I
black
don't know
thumb.
how I have not ever seen you there.
So it's like the pastor comes up to me right away, and that's just been my life. Like I always like dogs love me, people love me, and like people just come out of the blue and talk to me randomly in stores. Like it's always happened. And when he talked to me, I was like, I served at a church for over a decade in security. Talked to the pastor twice. And in this month, I've talked to this pastor 3 times, and he's just moseying all around, and I was like,
hundreds and hundreds.
I was like, I got to serve. Like, I got to serve. So I was like, I got right into security because it's like, I don't like to half-ass anything. I like to whole-ass it. And so it's like, if I'm going to call this church my home as a man, my conviction is serve. So I got right into serving, did that right away. And, they were talking about small groups and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm not for all that corny stuff. Like, I don't want to do that. I'm not trying to sit here and talk about, like, I've been to AA before, like, and NA. I know what it's like. It's going to be a bunch of stupid, and I don't want to be a part of it. And so I said out loud in the bathroom, because my wife was like, we need to do something. I was like, well, if we can find a group within a couple miles of our house that's from 40 to 60-year-old, no children, adult kids only, cool. All right, God, let's see it.
Next day.
5 minutes later, I look on the thing, and I'm like, oh.
I see you.
Okay. Yeah, funny man, huh?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're funny too.
Yep.
Everything's a joke today.
God's a comedian, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, I've tried to be a man of my word.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of one of the biggest things about me now is if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I said, God, do something. He did something, and now it's my turn. And so we went to the group, and we've been going.
How was it?
It's been great. We've been going. We were just there last night.
Oh, good.
Yeah, every Thursday, and then I go to a men's group tomorrow morning. We meet in one of the guys' garage, and he has a bunch of tools, and we just talk about weaknesses and stuff that we have as men.
Yeah.
That Jesus had boundaries, so I think men need to have boundaries too, so we can, as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another, and that's what we do in that group. Yeah. And these people, they're quite a bit older than me. And so that was kind of me, like, being uncomfortable at first. I'm like, man, I'm not trying to do all this. Like, these dudes are probably, like, glowing with Jesus, and I'm over here, just a 2-time felon, the only black guy here. Like, man, this is not going to go well. But these people, I could call any 5 or 6 of them right now, and they'd show up if I needed, So we had a huge issue when we left Washington State with. We had no friends. We didn't, the friends that we had, like I have my 2 best friends that are ride or die that'll come right now if I need, but my wife didn't have anybody. We would try to find couples friends, and like the woman was crazy. Yep. Or the husband had something for my wife, and it just never worked out. And so we were like, God, we need people. And we got here now my wife has six women that are full of wisdom that she's going to go hang out with Saturday, and she has a whole big relationship with them. I got a relationship with these folks now, and it's like everything that we've asked for in Jesus' name has come true. Like, even things that we haven't asked for, like we didn't ask for a whole group of friends, but now we got it, and they're all God-fearing, God-loving. We have great times with them every time, and I wouldn't change it for the world. All that's doing for me, and selfishly, it's helping me become a better man. And there are times that I say things that help them think, we're talking about people in their 50s and 60s, and, I'm able to help them with some things at some times, and so it's a give and take thing, and they're really bringing out, things in me. Like, one thing I learned when I went to Mexico, when I was working at AWS Design and Data Centers, is immersion is real. So when I go to Mexico, like, I don't know Spanish, but I'm in Mexico. And so by the time a week goes by, now you're speaking Spanish.
Yeah, you picked up a bunch.
So I know that works. So it's the same thing with the Lord. Immerse yourself in it. And if you continue to do it, whether or not you like it or not, if you immerse yourself in that, you're going to become godly. Things are going to start rubbing off on you. Man is going to sharpen man. You're going to get smarter. You're going to get wiser. You're going to be able to take that information and give it to somebody else who's struggling, because based on your experience, like the people that in my group, they've never been through what I've been through. Some people have been through worse, and it feels good to know that it's like, this island has a lot more people on it than I thought.
For sure. It ain't so lonely.
Yeah. So it's been good. And then, just the church. We were just at the worship night on Tuesday, and that was wild, standing room only. And it's like, just look at all the stuff that God is doing. Look at all these people. Like for me, it's so reassuring when I'm seeing young people, in their 20 somethings or even younger than that are praising God, because I'm like, that's who's going to be voting soon. That's going to be the people that are running, that are going to be wiping my diaper soon. I want to see that. And so it's just amazing to see that, and so that's what helped me stop cursing on the way out of the parking lot, because it's like, this is helping so many people. Just take your time. You'll be all right. What's the worst that's going to happen,
Yeah.
So it's been good, man. This church and these people and these things came like at the perfect time. And one thing that I know in my life is God is never early, ever, but he is never late either, And so it's like the blessings of my life show it. It's like, at this point now, I'm like, I'm just going to wait. Like, whatever. I know it's last minute, whatever. I know God's going to come through, like it's always
and if
last
he doesn't,
minute.
it wasn't meant to be.
Exactly.
Or that door is going to close. The one that you've been working on for 5-10 years trying to open a door, that might slam in your face, and this crazy one might open over here and take you on a whole new journey.
Oh yeah. And I know God has saved me when he shuts a door and then I go to the back and break into the window, and then I'll get in a situation that was not ordained for me, but God gets me through it.
Yep.
Even within my stupid ways, like God still comes through, even when it's my own fault. It's like, yeah, the devil's real, but sometimes bad stuff happens because you're an idiot, and that's been true. And God still saves throughout all that, and so it's like, again, I have to live 100% because everything that I've done in my life, I've been 100% an addict, 100% this, 100% bad dad. Like, let's try 100% good man, 100% good Christian, like I still cuss here and there, and that's because I'm a construction worker. That's where I come from. But, now I work in my boxers, with a polo on, because I work from home. Mm-hmm. Like, God has like blessed me. Who would have thought when I was carrying conduits up stairwells, up these skyscrapers that, 20 years later, now I'm going to be a master electrician working from home, getting paid the most money I've ever gotten paid in my life. And I work, I hope my boss ain't watching, like 5 hours a week, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
And it's like, this
Blessed,
has to be God. Like, there's no way, I brought up in the group last night, I felt like, how come there's no like walk on water moments these days with God? Like, how come he doesn't show up like he did in the Old Testament, like the burning bush? Like, I want my face to glow. Yeah. I want to be like Moses. I want to see God. How come I can't see nobody walk on water?
Something.
And what one of the men in the group said was that, look at all of, we know you want to see the big miracle, but look at all the small ones. Like, all those small ones add up to, I'm here now. I'm alive, So it's like, gosh, I'm a black and white guy, literally, black and white, but also, on and off. And it's like, sometimes I just want to, like, I want to see it. And I feel like if I saw it, it'd push my faith even further. But
everybody would be a believer.
Well, yeah.
That's the greatest part. It's our choice. And
yeah,
he leaves it up to us to be able to reach and to be able to follow. And yeah, I ask myself, I have a lot of the questions, I have a lot of those same questions where it comes to like, why don't we see these things? Like, why are all the plagues and the raining fire and all the Old Testament and, and it's like, why don't we? But then you start thinking about it. It's like, then free will.
Yeah.
It gives us the ability to be able to make that choice. And that's the hardest part of being a believer.
Yeah. Cause I've always, like, my life has taught me how to discern things and see things from a mile away. Like, so a whole bunch of things add up to my belief system. It's like, nope, this is going to happen and this was going to happen. So when I have to, and that's tangible, it's harder when it's not tangible.
For sure.
And you just have to believe,
Sure. That was my biggest battle for the longest time. I'm one of those make it make sense people.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we've been in the mood, prove it, right? Yeah. We've done this, I have to see, I have to touch, I have to taste, I have to feel.
Yeah. In
order to believe. That's just how I'm wired.
Yeah,
somebody could be like, the sky is blue. Is it? I got to look upside and see it, right? And that, so when it came to believing and surrendering and just, okay, Like, we're in this. I got to believe this story that's been thousands of years, and it's been rewritten, and there's been scrolls that have been removed, and everything else that comes along with it, and all the naysayers and the hate, and he never walked on water. He didn't ascend, and you have everything going against it. And so for me, then once I started looking and be like, well, why do so many people hate if God isn't real and Jesus never walked the earth? Why is there so much hate? Why aren't we crucifying the Muslim community like any Christian is? Why aren't we doing this to the Jews or to the Buddhists or to anybody else, that all these other religions? Why is it that Christians are crucified the most in TV, comedies, movies, books, everything? Everybody can trash Christians. So to me, that's when I started thinking. I'm like, if it was so fake, why do people hate it so much? Why are they so offended by this?
The only religion the devil's afraid of is Christianity.
Yep.
Because he created all the other ones.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Hey, I'm with you. Fallen angels, man.
Yeah.
That's where we can go down that. Dude, the wife and I are gonna do a podcast on fallen angels, but where all the other religions come from. What's up?
Yeah. I'd love to be a part of that.
And it's crazy, but like when you start piecing things together, right? The fallen angels and all the stuff, the Nephilim and the things that make sense, like that you could
giants
and and that there's proof and the things have been documented and all this stuff. But when you start adding things together, you're like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that was connected to that. That was the brother of so-and-so that murdered so-and-so that led to the king of and then when you actually start learning the true history and how it intertwines, and these people foreshadowed this and they were speaking of this during 1,000 years before this. And it's like, you're like, how? There's no such thing as coincidences. I do not believe in coincidences. It's like, make that make sense. And the only way to make it make sense is that it truly happened. Like, that's
ordained.
And that's how my mind has to. I'm like, and there's no other reason. Now, if you're like, oh, we can get in the other religions, so that's a whole other rabbit hole. But yeah, it's crazy to me, especially when I'm talking to these people and I'm like, this to me makes sense. And so the more you dive into it, and the more that I start praying and talking and having those conversations, it's like, just the feeling alone. That's what I always tell people. I'm like, bro, let's say it's all fake.
Yeah.
Let's say it is all made up, and we're some blob that crawled out of the ocean and we evolved into whatever it is. If this was all fake, but I'm living my life believing that there is a heaven, believing that there is a hell, believing that God sacrificed his son for us, and I'm gonna truly believe in my heart that this is it. And if I die and then we just get reincarnated and I'm born as a tree or a fucking bald eagle flying around, cool.
Yep.
But if there is that little bit of a chance that I live my life how I am, and I have peace and I have grace and I have love, and I realize what I have and how blessed we truly are to be on this planet and wake up every single day with what we have.
Yeah.
And I go to heaven one day and it works out. Yeah. Like, I don't see where the turnoff is here, at least how my mind registers. And I'm like, even if I choose to live this life and it is all fake and I die, and there's that one little hope that, holy shit, it's all real.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. I'm cool risking my life by how I feel now, by following this fake God, by following this made up book, by following all the historical evidence that science has never debunked. I'm cool following that.
Yeah.
If this is where it has the potential of leading me, versus I'm just going to live my life how I'm going to live it as a man.
Yep.
Angry, full of hate, irritable, taking it out on my kids, taking it out on my wife, fucking cheating, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is that we all chase as men, women, but I'm talking to us as men. Yeah. It's like, okay, now that might have seemed like a great life. I mean, dude, we all have one of your stories, right? Like, I have some insane stories, and it's like, I wasn't happy then.
Yeah.
I thought I was happy, running, gunning, doing all the stupid shit I was doing majority of my life, until I truly started believing and praying and talking and listening. And it's like, man, I'll take this softer version of who I am now versus the hardest time I've ever I was in my life.
Oh, 100%. I have to agree. Like, this 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 truly feels good waking up every morning, like doing my, our me and my wife's devotionals we do every day to each other. Like the things that we look forward to now are just so reassuring and fulfilling that it's like we don't, she stopped doing, drinking as well a while back. So it's like now we're living to our fullest potential. We love God. We know God loves us, in the middle of a storm, but we're still getting through it. And, I'm just thankful that we've gone through what we've gone through and made it out on the other end so that we can look back and be like, wow, next year or the year after, it's going to be 20 years married, and we got married early 20s. So it's like the first 10 years were hell, but now we're, at this point, now we're just coasting. And it's like with God centered, in it now, it's like, oh, I'm having an issue with this. Did you pray first? Not, I did everything I could do and then prayed. It's, did you pray first? And that's how we treat it. Everything is a prayer. My wife just sent me a prayer on my phone, as I was coming here, just cause, I'm dealing with stuff. I'm getting my 8-shot, coffee in Starbucks line. I'm dealing with my kid stuff. And I'm like, I'm literally getting ready to go on a podcast, and so she sent a prayer, and that it reminded me of the jail time when I just sat and smiled like, wow, like, when it's my job to lead, but she steps in when she knows that I need her to. And it's not something that I need to be like, oh, hey, can you step in? She just does it because she knows me. And she knows,
You guys are yoked.
Yeah.
You're equally yoked, which is huge.
Yeah. Insane.
Huge in a relationship, in a marriage. You could be yoked, but it doesn't mean you're equally yoked. And that's when it comes back to, I think for my wife and I, we weren't yoked for years, the majority of our marriage. And she got into her faith much quicker, earlier than I did, and still is on fire, but she found it first. I fell away from it in the military and just, walked and made my excuses of why, and I didn't believe in all that bullshit. I'll tell you what though, when we both got on that page of being yoked as a couple, man,
can't be stopped.
Okay, so are you cool talking about your wife?
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't done it more.
I feel like you've talked about her. You've brought her up through this whole entire episode.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part about your wife?
Her butt cheeks. No, I mean.
Finally, I found another Christian that has a sense of humor like me.
God made it.
Hey,
I like it, so whatever.
Giveth, he hasn't taken yet, so.
He's just made it bigger. Yeah, it's great. My favorite thing is my wife's heart. Like, she's so steadfast. Like, she grew up in the church, and I didn't. But through the midst of all the struggles that that we've been talking about, she stayed a godly woman. She never had any issues with infidelity or anything like that I ever had to question. Like, I've had woman issues my whole life because the only woman that was supposed to protect me didn't. And so I had trust issues, and, moving into with my stepmom, she hated me. So it's like, I'm kind of timid around, some women, especially if I start to care for them, because I feel like, when's the shoe going to drop? And she stayed loving throughout all that. Now, she's had her flaws. She's had,
for sure,
unreasonable moments herself. But she stayed there. She's always been, reading her Bible. She'll take my lead. If I say I don't want to go to church for 2 years, she'll follow. But she's still been a godly woman that's, only seen the best in me and knew that I could succeed. I just needed somebody to hold me down. I know people always say, hey, you got to get yourself right before you get with somebody, because otherwise you're just dependent. And I feel like God really ordained this and set this up perfectly, because, like, without her, like, I have no clue where I'd be. Like, I almost died with her. So it's like, if I wouldn't have been with her, like, who knows? God knows where I would have been. And I feel like if he wouldn't have put her in my life, that my life would have been cut short real quick, because I was my own worst enemy. And, the devil yells out loud, but the God whispers, and so it's like, I can only hear the devil at this point. And she saw through all that and then just rode with me the whole way, and it was like, without that, through all the bullshit, like I can safely say that I'd be dead because I didn't think I was going to make it to 25.
Yeah.
So thank God I got married at 23 because I would have been dead. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, so her steadfastness, her love, unwavering, you know, she hasn't been the nicest all the time, but she never gives up. It's either she wants a divorce and I say no, or I want a divorce and she says no. Then we go to a counselor. Like we've been through every different thing, you know. We even flew to Texas and did a couples conference with some friends of ours, and you know, flew down there and dealt with that. And it was like we've been through a lot of stuff, and so the respect that I have for her is like it's just unmatched. Like there's no, like, she's redeemed, you know, all of my faith in women. You know, like I was able to, after all this stuff happened, I stopped talking to my family, and she got me to, you know, forgive my mom and, you know, get in a relationship with her, you know. And granted, it was on my ICU bed, you know, when they came, but like she's helped, you know. She's like, hey, you need to forgive, you need to do this stuff. And it's like, I don't want to hear it. So one of the times that she said, she's like, you need to forgive the neighbor. And this is right before we moved. And I almost killed my neighbor because he was talking down to my wife when I was gone. Okay. And so I get back home, and this is just a funny God story, because I was like, you know what? Okay, I forgive my mom, and that's fine. Okay, I did it. But this neighbor, like, I wouldn't piss on him if he was on fire. Mm-hmm. Like, I hate this guy. Literally got the moving truck packed up, got my Audi on the little flatbed deal, and I couldn't get it strapped on appropriately because I'd never done it. And so then I had to drive around because some people were coming in, and I had to drive the truck around the loop, and the neighbor stopped in front of my house. So I had to stop and block my neighbor's driveway, the one that I wanted to kill. And so I wanted to kill him, but I'm not disrespectful, so I'm not going to block his driveway. Like, I just won't do that. Yeah. And he was sitting in his truck, just sitting there. And I was like, so I walked over to his window and knocked on his window. And I was like, hey man, I'm trying to strap down my car. You know, he's called the cops on me 4 or 5 times, you know, because he's afraid for his life, rightfully so. I was like, can I leave my car here for a second? Like, I don't want to block your driveway. And he's like, yeah, man, of course. And then I was like, you know what? I'm so sorry. I apologize, you know, for everything. And the only reason why I'm like tearing up is because God is pretty funny. Because I was like, I'm not apologizing to this dude. I hate this dude. Mm-hmm. And on my way out of the neighborhood to leave to Star, God created a moment that forced me to, you know, essentially unpack my last bag of bullshit that I had left behind. Yeah. Like, he didn't want me coming to a new spot, you know, give me a new heart. Exactly. Carrying that old shit, because you carry your old bags with you. Yeah. You know, you bring fleas with you. You're going to have fleas everywhere you go, you know? So
how'd that feel? When you turned around and walked away from his truck, how'd that feel?
Oh, I immediately was like, you're funny. You're funny. Talking to God. Like, really? You just really want my wife to win, huh? She said I needed to apologize to everybody before we left, and I said no, and you were like, but she's right, so I'm going to force you into a position that makes that happen. So it's like all of those small little miracles, you know, that God, you know, blesses me with, you know, add up to, it's like, okay. And that kind of just opened my heart and allowed me to just trust wholeheartedly, read the Bible, you know, be as best man as I can be, you know, kind of show my dad, you know, how good of a man I can be, because I didn't get to show my real one, you know.
You and your wife have been through a lot together, and you're coming up on 20 years. What has been the secret to making it work between you two?
Just not giving up.
Okay. Like,
it takes 2 hard-headed people to not give up. And that's, and you know, like, I was like, I'm never talking to a counselor. I'm never going to, why? I got homies. Why would I pay somebody to listen to me when I can talk to somebody for free? I was like, I just don't want to talk to a counselor. But, you know, we did it. talk to counselors as family. Like we've done the couples retreats, you know, in Texas, and we've done so much stuff, and we never wanted to give up at the same time. You know, we were separated for about a month where I lived in a hotel and kind of did my own thing for a month, but we still came back together. It's like, it doesn't feel right. Like, you know damn well that I'm the only man, and I know damn well that you're the only woman. We're meant for each other forever. God ordained it. And like, so let's just make a deal. Let's never say divorce again, because it's not an option.
Nope.
Like, you say it, I'm gonna walk away and be like, okay, cool. You know, so we've gotten good at walking away. That's a big thing that took a lot, because it's like, we all want the last word all the time. But, you know, being able to recognize that you're in a battle, you know, is paramount to being able to make a good decision through that struggle. And so it's like, if we get into a little tiff or whatever, like I got jelly on the cabinets or something, because that's the extent of our issues now, is my midnight, you know, sandwiches, you know, kind of a deal. But that, like, walk away and come back and, you know, just love each other. Now it's a contest of who can apologize first if something happens, you know, versus like getting an apology out of my wife, you know, or me, like for 15 years. It was like, get a lotto ticket, because if I apologize, we're going to win the lotto.
Yo.
So,
Yo.
you know,
Been there.
but it's like, who can apologize first? Who can prove that they're not as stubborn first?
Yep.
You know, like that's
It's also
important.
a maturity thing too. And then
Yeah.
you get, I feel like it just hits you one day. You're like, damn, she's pissed. Like, if I just say sorry, then the whole day just gets better from this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or this is going to drag out for several days where I can just go in there and be like, hey, my bad. You know, I'm an asshole.
It's such a struggle. Like, my pride is so, it's the only thing that I still have, you know, that I've had my whole life. It's the hardest thing to get rid of. But, you know, the devil gave me the pride, you know? And so I feel like it's anything that the devil gives me, if I give it to God, he'll magnify and glorify it in his name, and he'll get me through whatever.
Yep.
And so now, instead of prideful, I'm just a proud follower of Christ, and that's it. I still have proud, but I'm directing it in the way that, you know, God would have me.
I love that. Damn, dude, this is a great conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like I can talk to you for...
We didn't even get to my dad either, my real dad.
You want to?
Yeah, why not?
All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
We'll finish on this crazy adventure. So your dad, just so if I'm clear, you didn't know your biological father your whole entire life. You found out who he was 10 years after he passed?
After he died, yeah.
Walk me through this.
So he was South Central LA.
Okay.
He was a Grape Street Crip, which I was like, my favorite color's been blue my whole life. That's why. But he was married at the time, and my mom was down there doing something, got pregnant. She came back up to Washington, and, you know, he didn't know about me until, you know, a while, you know, like I was like 5 or 6 when my mom finally told me in that crack house in Virginia, hey, your father's name is this. And so I carried that with me forever. I never was able to reach out to him because of my circumstances and situations. I didn't have the tools as a kid to try to find who my dad was.
For sure.
And so I think me and my wife are like 14 years into marriage, maybe, or close to 10 or something at the time. And so I looked up my dad. I found him. I found some relatives of his. I got a hold of his ex-wife's daughter, got a bunch of information from her, found out who my brother, you know, quote unquote, was. And then, so I finally linked up with him, and she gave me the whole story. I got a bunch of pictures of my dad. She gave me a bunch of stuff, and they're all wedding pictures, of course, you know, when my mom was pregnant, you know, while he was getting married. But it was wild. So I finally found him. I found my brother. I went and got a paternity test done with my brother.
So he's cool. So you guys are.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
He was cool. We get the paternity test done. Comes back that me and him aren't related. And so I was defeated at that point, because like I called my mom. I was like, what kind of whore doesn't know who their kid's dad is, just around sleeping with the world, doing whatever, and so then I hang up on her, and I tear up a little bit, I'm a crier, obviously, and my wife hugs me and stuff, and she knows that it's a tough time, because her mom had just recently told her within the past few years that the dad that she had wasn't her dad. Her dad was actually a guy that was still in Wisconsin. So she kind of understood the issue that was going on. And so I let it go. I was like, whatever. It is what it is. It's not my family. It's whatever. I'll find out who he is. So I did the 23andMe thing. And so then I ended up, it paired me with, the black side of my family. And so then I went and I called everybody that had information. I messaged them on the tree website, whatever it is. And I finally had one a gal hit me back, from the black side. And I was like, I'm trying to figure out who I'm related to. And she was like, well, my grandfather is Charles Odell Von Lewis, which is my dad, or my grandpa, and so I was like, okay, wait a minute. So your family, I'm related to you. Your family is the people that my mom told me was in the very beginning. But I was like, but I got a paternity test with his son. That wasn't his son. So now I'm at the crossroads.
Oh, shit. So you thought your mom was hooking up with other dudes, but meanwhile, your new half-brother, his mom was hooking up with other dudes and thought, okay, so holy shit.
So that was a pinnacle moment in my life, because I'm like, okay, I know who my dad is now, but what is outing this going to do?
Yeah.
It's going to ruin those family pictures on the wall. It's going to do so much damage that I just decided, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to let it go. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm going to just go to my grave with it and just deal with it. And so left it alone. And, I've always been a little frustrated, that like, oh, my two brothers and my sister, they knew their dad. I found out who my dad was. He ended up dying, smoking crack. He had asthma like me. He was a crack dealer that was working for UPS, dealing drugs on his route, in Watts, California.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and so his parents were extremely Pentecostal, like black Pentecostal. Like, we're not calling the ambulance. We're not calling anybody. We're praying for you. They don't believe in, black and white marriages, that whole deal. And so he was smoking crack in the bathroom, and he overdosed, and he started having an asthma attack. And instead of calling, the paramedics or whomever, my grandparents were like, we're just going to pray for you and God's going to help you. And that's all they did. And he died right there,
shit.
So I just said, you know what? It's fine. This, again, par for the course. This is my life. Like, use it, somehow in the future for strength or to build somebody up, which come to find out that's helped my wife get through, her issues with, her real dad and that whole family thing. So it's like God put us together, gave us mom issues, gave us dad issues. Like, we almost been through similar things, but she was, a little white Christian girl from Tacoma, and I was just a troublemaking, addicted family, crazy background having kid, but our stories lined up perfectly together, and so, that's another thing. It's like telling me that God ordained it. Like, there's no way that we both went through almost the same thing on opposite ends of the world, and now we're together, having the same story, and we're able to get each other through the tough times. But yeah, I think that was the last crazy story I got. I'm sure there's more, but
dang, man,
that was the last one.
I appreciate your conversation.
Yeah,
I'm glad to, even though I screwed up our time, but
it worked out.
Hey, in almost 100 episodes, you're the first one, so
yeah,
it could have been worse. Yeah,
go get a lotto ticket.
Yeah, right. Dude, I really appreciate your time today, man. This was great. I appreciate you opening up and telling me a little bit about your life and letting us in. It was pretty awesome.
I appreciate you, this platform. I'm going to appreciate some bread later, you know, for sure. And so I just thank you for what you're doing, because it does a lot for a lot of people, you know, that whether you see every, you know, response to stories or not, like it's helping people. It's helping people relate, you know, with the struggle. And I think that's the beautiful thing about podcasts now, is that it can reach a lot more people faster, you know, than the average, you know, Billy Graham revival kind of deal. So,
well, I think it's cool too, because people, especially with us, we do a little bit more of a long format. Or I've even thrown it out on social. I'm like, we'll shorten them up, and people are like, no, keep them. I'm like, okay. So it's really cool because you look at a dude like you, right? You're just this massive human being.
Astonish.
Right?
Yeah.
But the fact that you can show emotion, you have no problem talking about real shit, talking about your faith and your journey and your problems. And that's what I love seeing, especially with our guests, because we've all gone through our phase of just being full of piss and vinegar and trying to fight the world and waking up every day and choosing violence. But then to be able to hear guys' stories, how like that's not the life, like that only leads you down some pretty shitty roads.
100%.
And how to turn lives around, or people hearing how people have overcome such incredible, traumatic, traumatizing, I mean, you name it, we've had it on the show, and be able to talk about it. Then people get to hear that and be like, oh shit, like I'm not alone. Like, okay, like it's just really cool being able to watch our audience be able to share and be able to relate to a lot of the guests, because I'm not chasing celebrities, right?
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of.
I mean, kind of with me, but yeah.
Well, thank you for what is the word?
Gracing you with my
gracing
presence.
us with your presence there.
Yeah, I got you.
But you know, it's one of those things. Like this is something that I love. Just everyday people that have gone through trials and tribulations and have come out on top, and they get to hear a story. They get a little bit of that and be like, oh shit, okay, like I get it, you know. So, dude, I appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for the conversation, man. This was great. God, you got some meat paws on you.
Yeah.
You didn't ever play college ball or nothing?
No. I didn't get that. I didn't get that black gene. I was airballing free throws. I was terrible.
God,
I was good at baseball though. That was it. But you know, cocaine was the only starting line I wanted to mess with.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Let's get you to sign the